What do they say? Better late than never?
Yep.
Yeah. Good morning and welcome to the In-Wheel Time Car Talk Show. Just ahead, Mike Quincy and Consumer Reports top 10 picks. Can't wait to talk to Mike about that. I got to drive the 2023 Cadillac Escalade, or as I like to call it, the Escalade
Man,
V series.
Be still my heart.
I'll give you my impression of it. We'll also have the cruise-in calendar. Later, Conrad has This Week in Auto History, and I'll have the stories making automotive news headlines this week. Just ahead on this edition of the In-Wheel Time Car Talk Show. Hello, and along with Mike Mars, King Conrad DeLong, we need more Jeff Zekin. I'm Don Armstrong. Glad you could join us on this chilly morning in Houston, Texas. I hope it's nice where you are, wherever you are around the globe, because we now are reaching people on the other side of the earth.
How can that be? The earth is flat.
That's what we think of it.
They're upside down. They're hanging on.
There you go.
Mike Quincy, good morning to you.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Well, we're doing great. Thanks so much. Mike is with Consumer Reports. What's your title there, Mike?
I'm an automotive specialist, and I have no idea what that means.
Hey, Mike, I wanted to ask you about that. So is there like a division of Consumer Reports that does auto?
Absolutely. In fact, the main office of Consumer Reports is in Yonkers, New York, and that's where they test appliances, electronics, where advocacy offices are, all the administrative stuff. But I work at the Consumer Reports test track, which is in Colchester, Connecticut, and we do cars, we do tires, and we do child safety seats. So if you think that a Consumer Reports car guy has any advice for which refrigerator to buy, you're completely out of luck. I have no idea what to tell you.
Well, I'll have to tell you, I've driven some refrigerators before. Does that count? So, Mike, how many people are on the staff in the automotive department?
We have about 25 people
Jeez.
at the Consumer Reports test track, and these are made up of engineers, editorial folks, statisticians, administrators, and a bunch of maintenance folks that take care of the grounds. We have 327 acres to take care of. It's the site of the old Connecticut Dragway. So if you Google Connecticut Dragway, you will see how the track used to look before we bought it in the 1980s.
That's really cool. I love to hear those sorts of things. And I was thinking that when I found out that we were going to talk to you this morning, I thought, man, I want to ask him, what is the inside skinny there with Consumer Reports? They've got to have a staff. Well, now we know it's a couple of dozen people. Well, that's good to know. All right, so let's get on with today's subject, and let's talk about the top 10 picks in cars and trucks. And I assume that these are Consumer Reports picks. First of all, let's qualify or quantify that. And
Gotcha. Just checking volume.
yeah, well, it's working really well over there. Let's talk about what defines the top 10 picks.
Sure. To be recommended by Consumer Reports, a vehicle has to do well in our testing. It has to have at least average or better scores in our member surveys for reliability and owner satisfaction. And it can't fail any crash safety tests, and it has to have lots and lots of standard safety features as standard equipment on all the trim lines. So we're talking about forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection at highway speeds, because we don't think that you should have to spend an arm and a leg to get all the safety features. And so now with the Consumer Reports top picks, these are the best of the best, the cream of the crop, the valedictorians of the class. These are the models that top their category in certain price ranges as being the ones that tested and scored the absolute number one.
So, Mike, you could buy a $25,000 car and get all those safety features on that car.
Right, and that's something to keep in mind when you think about the average price of a new car, which I think is like $46,000.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's expensive.
Yeah, so there are a number of vehicles. In fact, I think there's 5 vehicles on Consumer Reports top picks list that are $35,000 or less. You know, it's starting with the Toyota Corolla Hybrid, the Toyota Corolla Cross, the Camry. These are all models that did really well in Consumer Reports testing, very fuel efficient, super reliable, and and affordable if you're in the market for a new car.
So let's just get into it, shall we? Where do you want to start? You want to start with luxury? You want to start with price categories? How you define it?
Well, I'm thinking, Texas. I am a member of the Texas Auto Writers because I used to live in Austin, and they gratefully let me keep my membership. So I would say let's start with a pickup truck, and in this case, it's the Ford Maverick Hybrid. This model did really well in our testing. 37 miles per gallon overall for a pickup truck.
That's insane.
It's absolutely incredible. And listen, it's not an F-150. It's not a Silverado. It's not a Ram 1500. But for a lot of people that live in suburban environments, like I do, and a lot of people do, a small pickup truck absolutely fits the bill. No, it's not going to tow an enormous Airstream trailer or a horse trailer or anything like that. But it is a very civilized alternative to a huge pickup truck. Low base price, starts around $22,000. It has great handling. It's comfortable. It has good seats. It has easy controls. And listen, I'm glad to see more and more smaller pickup trucks in the marketplace.
Well, that's interesting that you should say it's that the Maverick, because Mr. Mars has a review of the Maverick in our last hour of the show.
Mm-hmm. And I happen to be driving the hybrid Maverick today.
Oh, cool.
I drove it over here, so I'm real interested. It's interesting that it pops up on his list.
Were you hauling anything? Donkey or anything?
I was hauling a couple of donkeys this morning trying to keep up with the traffic.
Now, you can interpret that any way you want to, but anyway, we'll move on from that.
I think I know the vernacular for donkeys.
Exactly. Well, let's keep Austin weird and just keep on going. Let's talk about automobiles under 25,000.
So one of the ones that really pops up, and it's very, very deserving, is the Toyota Camry Hybrid. Listen, a lot of people know the Camry. It's very popular. However, the hybrid really is the pick of the litter here. 47 miles per gallon overall in Consumer Reports testing. It's comfortable. It has lots of convenient features. As I mentioned before, lots of standard safety features. It has got great reliability. Listen, Toyota's been working on hybrid technology since like the year 2000, I believe. They've really got it down to a science. And these are complicated cars when you're talking about having an internal combustion engine with an electric motor and battery packs, and they're swapping back and forth all the time. This is not just a straightforward technology. So you got to give hats off to Toyota for sticking with this technology, perfecting it, and the hybrids from Toyota's lineups, whether it's Toyota or Lexus, have been super, super reliable.
Well, I have to tell you that I remember vividly, and I'm sure you do too, when the Prius came out, we were all blown away. No, it's not a race car. No, it's not a track car. It's none of that. It's good, reliable good, reliable transportation.
Spit it out.
However, I know it's still a little bit early, but I will tell you that it got great gas mileage and it was very comfortable. Looked a little weird, and it got this reputation among car people of being, nah, are you kidding me? It's a Prius. Well, okay, you can think that if you want, but it has a lot to offer people in a decent price range.
And it does what it says it's going to do. And Toyota's Synergy Drive, they've laid that out over a multitude of platforms and have proven all of them successful.
Yeah. And, I will say this about Toyota. They've kind of gotten a bad rap in the press about the fact that, they're way behind on EVs. And that's really not the case, is it, Mike?
Well, it technically, when you think about EVs, there's electrification, and electrification is kind of a broad automotive term that says it's either a pure EV, it's a plug-in hybrid, or it's a hybrid. So in some ways, Toyota has been along with electrification, as we mentioned, for like 22 years. Now, for pure EVs, no, they're not really. I don't think they're betting the farm on pure EVs, mainly because the battery technology isn't quite there yet, despite the success that Tesla and others have had. I don't think there's a lot of profitability in selling EVs also, again, despite Tesla. So I'm not sure that Toyota thinks that that's the future. I mean, I think they're from a technological standpoint, I think they believe a lot more in hydrogen fuel cells. Which, is a different kettle of fish because that doesn't have an infrastructure either, like electric vehicles don't have an infrastructure. But So I get I guess I get the criticism for Toyota not being in pure EVs, but I also understand it from a business standpoint why they're not.
Well,
Yeah, why be the guy that's out there spending all the money to figure everything out? Let Tesla do all that, and some of the others work on the hybrids, which I prefer. I actually think are better than the EVs for a lot of reasons, and at least for now.
So my feeling is, that Toyota, I think, is doing the right thing because I believe that EV is not going to sustain a car company unless it's some specialty thing like a Rivian or something like that. I think that the real success is going to become where
A blend.
of gasoline, hybrids, and EVs. Don't you?
Myself speaking for Consumer Reports, we agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that EVs are good for some people. They're not good for everyone. It really, people will think I'm going to save money if I buy an EV, and the answer to that dilemma, if you want to call it, is yes and no. It depends where you live. It depends on your electricity rate, and also comparison. It depends on how much gasoline costs where you live. For example, an electric vehicle versus a gas vehicle in Massachusetts versus California. California has cheaper electric rates than Massachusetts. Massachusetts has cheaper gasoline than California. So it isn't. It's not a slam dunk here. It isn't a universal truth that an EV is right for everyone. It is right for some people, and in fact, one of the top picks for the April issue of Consumer Reports is the Nissan Leaf, which is not too expensive. We're talking around $30,000. It has a range from 149 to 212 miles. If you're not doing massive road trips, if you're not living in like the Midwest where there's huge distances between everywhere you want to go, you're just living in town, you're commuting to work, it's a short commute, you're not driving that far, a Nissan Leaf makes all the sense in the world.
Right.
But it's not. See, I'm drawing a line between there are folks that say, well, everyone should drive an EV, and I definitely don't agree with that.
Right.
And to that point, it's exactly how you use that vehicle is how you're going to benefit from it.
Let's get back to the top 10 picks. So what else is on the list there?
Well, since we're talking about EVs and everybody wants to talk about Tesla, the Tesla Model 3 is a Consumer Reports top pick. And listen, this car really deserves it. It is an absolute thrill to drive for all of the big block muscle cars and Corvettes that I've driven in my life. There is nothing that can accelerate like an electric vehicle. Granted, it's not as viscerally satisfying, but man, is it quick. It's so quick, it hurts my head. But it's not just about acceleration. This car has really good steering. It has sports car-like handling. But really what puts the Tesla 3 really over the edge for recommending it so highly, it's not only that it gets 358 miles on a charge in the top trim line, but it's the Tesla supercharger network that makes the livability, the kind of day-to-day, whether you're running errands around town or you're actually going on a road trip. The Tesla supercharger network is better than any other EV infrastructure going. And as we mentioned before, the EV infrastructure is pretty thin. So just because you can get into the Tesla supercharging network is a huge advantage for this car.
And that network is expanding almost daily. They just put in 12 charging stations up near my house, which I watched the construction going on. I'm like, what a weird spot to build something. And then all of a sudden up popped the little Tesla
And
charging.
on the news reports this week that Tesla is letting other folks use their technology for other brands for the charging systems.
So
it's about time. They should all have the same plugs. I mean, can you imagine?
It should be
You
standardized.
buy an electric razor and you want to go plug it in, but it depends on what state or what house you're in. The plug doesn't work. I mean, they're all universal for a reason. As I think every EV charging station and input for an electric car should be as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, you use the beta model, and I'll go ahead and use the VHS model, and we'll see who wins that battle. So let's move on. Let's talk about something more upscale. I see that you've got a Lexus in there.
Right, and actually, this is funny. This is the vehicle that I drove home just the other day. I have this for the long weekend. The NX is a very, very nice car. Think of it as a super upscale Toyota RAV4. It has incredible fit and finish. The seats are wonderful. It's quiet. The controls are pretty easy to deal with. What I like also is 38 miles per gallon in a luxury car. And it has the practicality of a fold-down rear seat and a hatchback. Ours has all-wheel drive, which is good if you're living here in the Northeast. And it has that typical Lexus reliability, and it has active safety features that are standard, such as blind spot warning and rear cross traffic warning. So this really is a complete package. And this is the second generation of NX. The first one didn't impress us all that much. This one is much improved.
What do you think is going to be the highest selling vehicle amongst your list there?
Wow. I would say the Kia Telluride is just a juggernaut since it debuted a few years ago.
I agree with you. Yes. Yeah.
It has blown us away. And I remember telling a couple of my friends after we tested the first Telluride that were in the market for a family vehicle. And I said, jump on one. If you can get it, get it. And obviously, since the pandemic, getting a Telluride is impossible, just like for a lot of cars. But I mean, I think Kia has absolutely hit a home run with this vehicle. And everyone that I talk to, anecdotally, but I mean, listen, people that I talk to that have this love this car. So I think Kia is selling absolutely everyone they can build.
See, I'm not on that train. I don't think that vehicle is appealing. I just, for some reason,
Because
I
you're
just
old.
don't get it.
Because we're old.
It's just too big for me.
Oh, it's I understand.
Yeah.
It's close to Tahoe size.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's an odd size to me.
Well, I mean, you also have to keep in mind that this is a different generation.
Mm-hmm.
They grew up in SUVs, and that size, I think, strikes a real note with many, many people because it fits for them, young families especially. Don't you agree, Mike?
Well, yeah, and the question was, what do I think is the like the top selling? So, because I also agree. I mean, for my family situation, my boys are like 19 and 23, so I don't need 3 rows of anything. I don't need a 3-row minivan. I don't need a 3-row SUV. I don't need that much room. But for most families, young families especially, they're always looking for a 3-row vehicle. Now, listen, I've got nothing bad to say about minivans. I think they're completely underrated. Like the Toyota Sienna minivan, they're all hybrids. They get great fuel economy. They're super reliable. They're very easy to live with. When you've had small kids, a minivan is absolutely the best, easiest vehicle around. But people don't like the image. So they say, well, I want 3 rows and I want an SUV, or they say, I need an SUV. Most people don't need an SUV. Most people will never tow anything with their SUV, but that is the family vehicle of choice. So, but I totally get it. And I don't, 3-row vehicles completely lost on me at this stage of my life.
But the family may be moving half of the Little League baseball
That's
team
true,
or
yeah.
water polo team from location to location. That's where that 8-passenger, 9-passenger vehicle comes in important.
So how are we going to wrap this up this morning, Mike? What would you like to talk about next?
Well, I would say go to consumerreports.org. Check out all the information that we've got. I mean, Consumer Reports is a subscription-based service, but for a limited time, these articles on the top picks, most reliable, highest rated for owner satisfaction. We also have an EV and hybrid kind of hub within the car section of the page. Check it out. They're going to be free for a little bit while longer. That be behind the paywall. So I would say for all of your automotive needs, check out consumerreports.org. But don't look me up for a recommendation on a microwave oven.
Dang.
Well, I'll tell you this. All of us want to come up there and be you for at least a week.
When it gets warmer.
In the spring.
Hey,
in
July.
The spring.
Yeah.
Listen, you guys get to the Northeast. I will absolutely arrange to get a tour for you so you can see the facilities. Go for some hot laps around the track. I would be honored to give you guys a tour of the track.
Mike, thanks so much. We really appreciate that, and we appreciate you taking the time on a Saturday morning to talk to us. We'll hope to talk to you again very soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
so
Mike.
much for having me on.
You bet.
Mike
Thanks,
Quincy
sir.
with Consumer Reports. I just love to talk to those guys.
Very good information.
Yeah, I know.
They're passionate. They
we
know
could
what
have
they're
an
talking
entire
about.
hour
I know.
with him and still not finish it.
And the time to go to Connecticut is October when the colors are changing.
Yeah. Well,
What's the temperature?
road trip. Well, we're going to go up to Granbury and the Lodestar Throwdown.
Yeah,
So
we
last year we
it
went-
can't be much further on the map.
you can't. No, just a.
It was over 100 degrees
Tiny
in Granbury.
Let's talk about today's cruise-in calendar. Mr. Conrad DeLong has the cruise-in
Dun, dun,
calendar.
dun.
You're it. You're on.
I know I'm on. I'm fumbling through my stuff trying to find it.
There you go.
I hate that fumbling through stuff.
Sunday, February 26th is Cars and Cocktails at Little Woodrow's in Tomball. That starts at 11 a.m., goes on to 3 p.m. March 25th is the Spindletop Car Show at Church on the Rock out there by Mars.
That's the reason that we're talking
It's
about
on
it,
Mars?
because it's out there.
What
Yeah,
about
it's on
Venus?
Mars.
What about Venus?
Yeah, men are from Venus.
Anyway, go ahead, please.
April 2nd, Sunday, April 2nd, from 6:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. is the Woodlands Cars and Coffee for a Cause off of Market Street. April 12th, from noon to 6 p.m. is the Texas Pony Party at the
The
commemorative.
pony party.
I think it's
My
a
Little
must-
Pony.
I'll tell you what, that
My Little
that- you're
Pony.
dancing
The
on the
Mustang
edge
show.
when you say it that way.
Mhm.
the commemorative Air Force Central Texas Wing. April 14th through the 16th is the Lone Star Convention, hosted by the Central Texas Chevrolet Club at the Embassy Suites in San Marcos. June 24th, starting at 10 a.m. through the 25th, ending at 9 p.m., is the Lone Star Drift Round 3 at the Houston Police Academy.
Okay.
Up there by the airport.
Could you move that microphone a little bit closer to your mouth, please?
Am I
No, not popping the peas. I don't have any more room to turn you up over here.
The Good Guys Summit Racing Lone Star Nationals at Texas Motor Speedway, September 29th from 9 a.m. through October 1st at 4 p.m.
That it?
That's it.
All right.
Mr. Mars, how's your breakfast down there this morning? I'm sure I'm glad
It's
that you're-
all over the
Great,
table.
It's all over the table. I'm glad he's joining in the conversation, aren't you?
If we have a computer malfunction, it's because of all the sugar from your donut landing on your keyboard.
And-
You
you know-
brought it.
Yeah, but you ate it.
There's going to be instructions next week.
All right, time now for this hour's car review. Had a chance to drive the 2023 Cadillac Escalade. Some people call it an Escalade V series.
That's all you got to say.
What a hot
The
rod.
review is over.
That pretty much,
I
yeah,
love
for
it.
Jeff anyway. It comes in many trim levels. It starts off with the luxury, the premium luxury, sport, premium luxury platinum, sport platinum, and the V at the top of the heap. All new for 23 is the V. This is a standard SUV, body on frame, full size SUV, 7 occupants up to, including the driver. Exterior changes from last model year, not many. This 5th generation Escalade was introduced in, this particular one was introduced in 2021. Okay? Took them a couple of years to build enough of those supercharged V8 engines to get it ready for the Escalade. Exterior features: black grille with smoky gray wheels with the V emblem on the flanks.
Look good.
Squinty headlights up high on the nose, tail lights from roof to midline. Quad chrome exhaust tips, which is unique for the V. Tall vertical daytime running lights. Red brake calipers and ginormous rotors on this thing. It's not even a pie plate. This is a pizza pan.
Yeah.
I love ginormous.
What I like, everything. This ain't your mama's caddy Escalade. What could use improvement? Add some wings and it will fly.
Well, but could be, at 3 o'clock in the morning, it could annoy your neighbors because it had such a beautiful rumble to it.
Well, and
But
especially
the,
when
exhaust,
it's,
the
when it-
exhaust was loud.
when you start it up, I think it's pretty much open exhaust all the way to the back, and then it quickly chomps down on it. But yes, it is loud.
So there ain't no sneaking home at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, it could be as
Becky.
long as you put it in
Just saying.
neutral and you turn the motor off.
If you're
and you know what I'm talking
if
about.
you're coming home in that, you want everybody to see you in it. You don't
Yeah.
want to sneak around in it.
Not at 3 or 4 o'clock.
I
in the
don't
morning.
care. Just tub it out.
It sounded so good.
Interior
It's already got the
highlights:
LS.
a layered glass dash is beautiful with a unique instrument cluster. Upscale, top-notch, detailed leather appointments exclusive to the V. Different hard trim available for different levels of the V. Climate controls are separate pod at the bottom of the center console. Does that make sense to you? Cargo trunk room, massive with the seats folded down. What I like, GM's infotainment system is great. What could use improvement? I got a big question mark there because I don't know. You can't throw any more at an SUV than this one. You got the power, you got all of the room, the ride and the handling is great. We'll get to that in a minute. 6.2 liter supercharged V8 with 682 horsepower and
Be still, my heart.
653 pound-feet
Oh,
of
my
torque.
goodness.
10-speed automatic transmission. Tow rating 7,000 pounds. Haul rating 1,330 pounds.
No,
Big
haul
donkey.
rating is donkey.
Donkey
Honking, yeah, okay. Miles per gallon. Oh, this is great. 11 miles per gallon in the city, 16 on the highway for combined of 13. And believe it or not, I got 15.9. Over 310.4 miles. What I liked, power, baby.
Mm-hmm.
And
What could
gobs
use
of it.
improvement? Take the performance pages from the Hellcats and put it in this. It doesn't have that. Now, you can change things around a little bit, but not like you can the Hellcat. And this one begs for that. But you're not going to take this drag racing because it weighs 4 tons, almost 4 tons, 8,000 pounds. So that 682 horsepower I'm talking about,
Is working.
it works a lot.
The only thing I would recommend is an adaptable suspension, so you could literally lower the vehicle. Because I thought, looking at it, it rode high on the wheels and tires.
Well, I think that they don't do that because of the horsepower and the way that the whole thing is set up. Obviously, on the other Escalades, that's available. Almost 4 tons. That's a lot. Base trim price.
Here we go.
Base trim price.
Hold me
For
down.
the V. You can get into a V starting at $151,090. Price is tested $155,365. Chump change to you, Conrad. Base model price. You just want to drive an Escalade? You can for $79,295. Okay? So
in the
we're-
slow lane
Class
compared to the
C.
mix.
yeah, the slow lane, and it still is not
Tiny
slow.
tires.
Now, based on the base model price, Lincoln Navigator goes for $77,635, Lexus LX 600 $87,815, and the Infiniti QX80 goes for $72,700.
But
No,
none of them offer a performance vehicle
That's-
like the V.
That's what I was
They
just
don't
about to
sound
say.
the
That's
same.
Thank you,
And
Cadillac.
that is my review of the 2023 Cadillac Escalade.
Somebody wipe that smile off of his face.
The In Wheel Time Car Talk Show is available 24/7 through the iHeartRadio app. Just look for In Wheel Time Car Talk. We also video stream on Facebook, YouTube, and InWheelTime.com. Podcasts at your fingertips and over a dozen of the most popular podcast outlets. The In Wheel Time Car Talk Show continues right after this quick break. Everyone at the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In at the Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex in Katy, thank you for participating in the best cruise in around and look forward to seeing you again. You'll hear about the next cruise in date right here on In Wheel Time. Next time you're in the West Houston Energy Corridor area, be sure and stop in at the original Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex at I-10 and Highway 6 or the Katy location on the Grand Parkway at Kingsland Boulevard. When passing through Beaumont or College Station, stop in and have Lupi's award-winning beef fajitas and frozen margaritas. There's always a celebration at Lupi Tortilla. Lupi Tortilla founder Stan Holt and his wife Sheila are winning racers on the NHRA drag racing circuit and have a collection of hot rods and classics that everyone appreciates. Look for them at the next Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In. The date will be announced soon and will once again be held at the Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex on 99 and Kingsland Boulevard, just south of I-10 and Katy. We'll give you all the details right here on the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show and online. Donations benefit God's Garage. We'll see you then. You own a car you love. Well, why not let Gulf Coast Auto Shield protect it? Houstonian John Gray invites you to his state-of-the-art facility to introduce you to his specialist team of auto enthusiasts. We promise you'll be impressed. Whether you're looking to massage your original paint to a like-new appearance, apply a ceramic coating, install a paint protection film, nano-ceramic window tint, or new windshield protection called ExoShield, Gulf Coast Auto Shield is where Houston's car people go. Curbed your wheels? Instead of buying new, why not have them repaired? How about a professionally installed radar detector? Gulf Coast Auto Shield does that too. Get a peek inside the shop and look at the services offered by getting online and heading to gcautoshield.com. Better yet, stop by their facility at 11275 South Sam Houston Tollway, just south of the Southwest Freeway, and get a personal tour. Gulf Coast Auto Shield is your place to go for all things exterior. Call them today, 832-930-5655 or gcautoshield.com. The award-winning In Real Time Car Talk Show is available on the most popular podcast channels out there in 30-minute episodes. We realize our 3-hour live show can be difficult to catch in its entirety, so now you can listen every day to a convenient, fresh 30-minute episode. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible, along with a dozen more. In Real Time has the most informative automotive guest interviews and new car reviews, along with popular features including Conrad's Car Clinic and This Week in Auto History, along with automotive news headlines. Our live broadcast airs every Saturday, 8 to 11 Central on InRealTime.com, the iHeart app, and on YouTube. Be sure to say hello when we're broadcasting from the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In, Autorama, and the Houston Auto Show, among others. Now, it's easier than ever to hear about all things automotive all week long. You're invited to join fellow car enthusiasts in becoming part of the ever-growing In Real Time Car Talk family. Don't forget those 30-minute podcast episodes on your favorite podcast channel. 7 a.m. Central. Well, you know, leave it to me.
Or Beaver, one of the two. Leave it to Beaver.
Okay.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Exactly.
Welcome to the In Real Time Car Talk Show, or something else. We don't want to even admit that this is the In Real Time Car Talk Show.
Oops.
Thank you, Don Armstrong. Coming up, Lewis Black joins us to talk about raw materials for making cars. Later, look at the stories making automotive news headlines this week. Howdy, along with Mike Out of This World Mars, King Conrad DeLong. We need more Jeff Zekin. I'm the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Screwing it all up.
It's great. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for pointing it out. It's all my fault,
Doing
as
what
it
we
usually is. Joining us now, live from the great state of New York, I believe it is. His name is Lewis Black. He's the CEO of Almonte Industries. And Lewis Black, not the comedian, but, well, I guess you can be, Lewis, if you want to be. But it's good to have you back with us again. Almonte Industries is an international raw materials development company. And I know that last time we spoke to you, you were in Spain. And
Absolutely true.
Yeah, and you're back in the States.
Well, you know, it was the fact of you know, the good weather and the fresh food and you know, the wonderful, charming nature of Spain. I thought like it was too good. So I returned to the States to feast on the culinary delights of New York City.
Oh my God! Yeah, and he's a salesperson too.
It's not quite what I expected, but I think it's important that I keep my feet on the ground.
Absolutely.
Chamber of Commerce wants you.
So it's Ray's Pizza and Say Bread hot dogs.
I have to say, it is a delight to be able to walk in somewhere and get food straight away. Whereas in Spain, it's more of a sort of, you know, suggestion. You kind of wait and maybe come back and maybe they remember or maybe they don't. So you never really know. But no, it's good to be back home.
Well, and it's good to have you back with us again. I know that after our last conversation, we had to pick our jaws up off of the floor
Learned
because
a lot.
we learned an awful lot, and there's been a lot of changes since we last talked to you in the supply chain, and you're really at the base of the supply chain, and that is materials, raw materials to make the things that go into cars. And the first thing that comes to my mind are batteries for EVs, and we keep hearing these horror stories about there's not going to be enough raw materials to make the batteries at the rate that everybody is bragging about how fast these EVs are going to come off the assembly line. And I was hoping to find out from you exactly what the status is of that. Can you fill us in?
Well, I mean, I think that this is not a new story. I mean, back in the days before Tesla made EVs sexy, hybrids were the future. And even back then, with the way that they wanted to transition towards hybrids, they said they were a decade away from getting enough raw materials to be able to produce the number of hybrids that would be required going forward. So this is really a continuation of the same story. And I think since the hybrid stories, the world has changed, even more, where raw materials don't win you votes. The idea of getting raw materials probably does, but the idea of actually producing them does not. And so what we're seeing in democracies across the board is an understanding of the strategic nature of needing these products, but not wanting to build it in your own backyard. So I think the days of seeing large-scale mines opening in democracies are coming now to a close. And then, of course, it's a completely different conversation regarding procurement, because yes, you're completely right. The politicians are really running to the end of the race without actually knowing how to start it, because there is no way there is even close to enough raw materials to meet these timelines that are being imposed upon everybody.
And is some of the reason why some countries are unwilling to do the mining is because typically this is open pit mining?
No, I mean, many mines are, you have a balance of both. It's just that the concept of making a mine, whether it's open pit or underground, it doesn't win you votes. No one's getting elected on the back of that. And so, building a battery factory, that's a lot more kind of palatable, but you still got to feed the battery factory.
Right.
So you're really moving to a stage where you're imposing timelines that that the industry cannot meet. And on top of that, you are going to strengthen the very lack of diversification in your supply chain that you're trying to get away from, because the only countries that are even close to being able to increase output are the ones that are already producing.
Interesting.
Because I know that I saw a story where somebody, they were trying to open a mine in Michigan. And I don't remember exactly what they were trying to, uranium or something like that. Anyway, of course, all the EPA type came in and said, no, we don't want a mine in Michigan. Go do it someplace else. We don't want you to open this mine. So I think they pretty well stopped it.
Well, you can only mine where the raw materials are in the
Right,
ground.
exactly.
I mean, it's not like they could just choose another place.
Start digging a hole.
Look, I mean, in democracies, it takes you 8 to 10 years to open a mine anyway. The United States has a different quirk in that you can go through all the processes of approval and then still politically be rejected, even though that rejection is in the gray area of whether it's even legally possible to do. It's a risk that you face. And so if you're an investor, you're going to shy away from that risk because you can spend all this money getting to the finish line and then it still gets shut down. In Europe, they seem to be a lot more delicate about this. They just don't approve the project. They don't actually say publicly, we're not going to approve it. They just don't approve it. And so we are really seeing, to open a mine in a democracy is problematic. And yes, the NGOs, indigenous groups, there's all kinds of basically people that now need to say it's okay to mine. National interest is really at the back of the queue because we're in a democracy where an individual counts. If you're in a country where that doesn't, an individual is not important, you can put national interest at the front of the queue. But that is the price, whether we like it or not, of living in a democracy. And to be honest, yes, it's a pain, but I'd rather be in a democracy than the alternative.
Right. And then, so is that why it seems like a lot of the raw materials are probably coming out of Africa more than the democracies of
South
Europe?
America, places like that.
I mean, regulation-wise, it's certainly simpler. Now, it doesn't tick the transparency box that many customers desire, but until such time as there's greater choice for these consumers, those questions are going to be put on the back burner because you can't really bite the hand that feeds you. You
Right.
can't say, oh, we're not happy with one jurisdiction because it's not transparent when you have no alternative to replace that material you're walking away from. And a great example is Russia. So for tungsten, so we're the guys outside of China who produce the most tungsten. But between China and Russia, 90% of the world's tungsten is produced. And yet, since they rolled into a sovereign country, which in itself was extraordinary, the reaction of the West has been, well, we're going to confiscate some oligarchs' yachts, We're not really sure they own them because they're obviously hidden behind many different, different shell companies. But there's been no disruption of raw material supply from Russia, none whatsoever, because you can't afford not to buy it. There's nowhere else you can get it. And so you do find yourself in a rather difficult situation where your own policies are going to continue to empower jurisdictions that perhaps don't share your values. And that, of course, ultimately leads to drama.
Yeah.
What is tungsten used for in automobile manufacturing?
Well, funnily enough, tungsten's at the top of pretty much every country's strategic list because it's in absolutely everything. They don't use a lot of it, but without it, you can't actually make anything. So we're talking from defense to medical to automotive, batteries, technology, screens, semiconductors, aerospace, everything. I mean, in your room right now, pretty much everything you can see around you has some connection with tungsten, whether it be your laptops, whether it be your phones, whether it be even the table, the manufacturing of that table. So there's a little bit of it in everything. And to think that 10 to 12% of all tungsten is used in defense, and yet 90% of all tungsten comes from China and Russia, you can see that it's an area that no one really wants to make a big noise about until they have alternatives. They just don't really know how to get to that point of finding alternative sources without essentially upsetting the hand that feeds you.
So we've got In Wheel Time Mining Company. Where would you suggest we put a shovel in the ground?
Well, ultimately, it depends what gets you out of bed in the morning. For me, I like to sleep at night, so I only want to operate in safe jurisdictions. And on that basis, I'm prepared to go through the, damage of getting a permit slowly in democracies that are still looking at, very limited growth in that area. If you want to make money, well, you head to South America, you head to Africa, but you face and you head to the Caucasus or, the old satellite states of the Soviet Union, Mongolia, but you run the risk that you can make a lot of money, but you can also wake up one morning and find that the president's son has decided he wants to be in your business, and your business is now painted a different color.
And you've lost everything. So with the changes looked at in technology in the batteries, I realize, the batteries, the lithium ion, the cobalt and stuff is all kind of where they're at now, but there's future changes of battery because there's so much technology, research and development. Is Almonte looking at the future and what stuff they're going to need as they change the battery recipe?
Well, the recipe may change, but it will still require raw materials. And then we go back to what we were just saying. You can't build these mines in democracies. So you are probably still shopping in the same store. You're just going to a different aisle. So nothing really changes on that basis.
Wow.
I mean, we've seen growth in tungsten in the last 6-7 years. It's been driven, say, in South Korea. So South Korea is the largest consumer of tungsten per capita in the world. And we happen to be reopening the world's largest tungsten mine right in that jurisdiction. Its main primary source of consumption is technology in South Korea. So it's used in screens, it's used in semiconductors, and it's used in batteries. And as those are enormous growth areas within the country, you've seen double-digit growth of tungsten consumption. Tungsten is one of those bizarre metals that disperse heat, do not smelt, well, they smelt slightly less than the temperature of the sun, and is very conductive, which means they pump like a tungsten gas into every semiconductor because it means you can run many more operations in that semiconductor and not worry about heat. They're using it now in anodes and cathodes because you can get rid of the cobalt and use more nickel, and that way the batteries don't combust. And you can charge them very quickly, but not just for vehicles, EVs. You can do the same for laptops, for phones, and these are now what are being produced in South Korea as they enter commercial production, meaning you can charge your phone in a matter of minutes, as an example.
So that tungsten is the advancement of technology.
Tungsten is part of the recipe. Tungsten is not the only recipe. I mean, we talk about lithium, but lithium only operates when it's combined with other metals. It's just, ultimately the market gets hold of a story and sort of drives the narrative on one particular metal, but no one particular metal is going to build the future. the way that metal is combined with other metals is what's going to build the future.
Something
And
that was
that's-
running around on the internet this week was mining on the floor of the ocean.
Yeah, the little nodes.
Yeah, little nodes. Do you know anything about that?
Well, yes. I mean, look, I to be perfectly honest, if you think you have problems in Michigan opening a mine with the environmentalists, you try doing it in the ocean.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
You know, I mean, you've got local, the local NGOs in Michigan. You'd have global NGOs with. I mean, think about it. You know, Greenpeace doesn't even allow you to take nuclear-powered vessels into, or New Zealand, into their waters. You have no shot of mining at the bottom of the ocean. I mean, it's never going to happen in a lifetime. You have more chance of mining in space.
Yeah.
But the oceans, no. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure that's the greatest idea. You know, regulations exist for a reason on land, and they're a pain and they're a drama and all these things. But ultimately, they serve a really valid process, because up until the sort of 80s, you know, mining companies, a lot of them couldn't behave themselves, and they did a lot of damage. And when China arrived into the market and essentially gave away almost free product, say in tungsten, there was 100 tungsten mines outside of China in the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s. By the beginning of the 90s, there were 2. So that culling was a necessary market function, but also it solved a big problem for a lot of the governments. These mines weren't adhering to regulations that are now in place. So even though they drive me nuts, I really see the benefit of them.
So let me ask you, if I understood a while ago, you said it takes you like about 10 years to open a new mine. Was that right?
Yeah, I mean, 8 years if you're lucky, 10 years if you're not.
So in relation to the technology, you said most of it's going to be a combination of existing products, but if somebody comes up and says we think we're going to need more of one particular raw material, and so you need to expand your capacity. But if they come up with something totally new, said you're not mining this now, but we want to start because we need it for this. I mean, does that ever happen to where you really got to go out and find new places?
We know, the elemental table gives us a list of everything that exists. So pretty much everything has been prospected and prepared in that sense. I mean, a lot of the elements are actually byproducts of production of other metals. So, rare earths, for instance, aren't that rare. I've never really been sure whether I think they wanted to command attention on the elemental table, and they were called rare earths, but they weren't so rare. But no, there's nothing. I don't think there's anything majorly new to discover. I mean, I could be wrong, but ultimately, smarter guys than I have been pulling over minerals and metals for the last 200 odd years. Some of them going back 4,000 years of copper and tin. But no, I don't think you're going to find that. I think your main problem is going to be whether ESG continues to be front and center, so that the companies like Apple and Airbus and Boeing, and Ford, they demand transparency of their supply chain. And also, how are they going to address the fact that they shop pretty much all in the same store? What happens if that store, closes or has a problem or decides that you're no longer welcome in that store? I mean, there are 100 different things that could happen, but you don't have anywhere else to go right now. And that's really, I think, the major problem facing all manufacturers currently.
Sounds a little scary.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have a backdrop behind you. What mine is that?
This mine is Los Santos in Spain. It's our Spanish asset.
And what do they mine there?
That mine's tungsten.
Okay.
And ultimately, what you see is actually basically the sand to control all the dust. And then when this mine closes, all of that will disappear. It's all revegetated.
Reclaimed, yeah.
So look, I mean, now is not what it was. Ultimately, you have a responsibility and you have to adhere to that responsibility. Mm-hmm. But I think the image of mines is still suffering from the sins they committed back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, the legacy issues that were left. And that means that ultimately, politically, if you think this current administration, the previous administration, they talked very strongly about raw materials until they sort of ran into this headwind of, you know what, no one's going to elect you on that. So they kind of migrated further downstream to semiconductors, batteries. So they've gone to the end of the race, and they're going to let someone else worry about the start.
Yeah, that could make sense.
Very
yeah.
interesting.
So you talked about the elemental table. Do you have kind of a map of the elemental table and where those elements are available around the world?
Sure. I mean, actually, USGS, the U.S. Geological Society, is really good. They have a really good in-depth knowledge, because in the Cold War, they were tasked to finding out who had what and where it was, and that was all part of their planning. Even though they were stockpiling material for American manufacturers in the event of war, they wanted to know that if they had to send boots on the ground, who were they going to get first? And that's always happened historically. If you look at Japan pre-Second World War, the first country they rolled into was South Korea, because they in fact wanted to get their hands on the mine that we're reopening, because they use a lot of tungsten in defense. So in munitions. So yes, there are maps that show what's where. And, the US has a lot of raw materials. There's no doubt about it. It's a vast country. Canada has a lot of raw materials. Mexico has a lot of raw materials. You are surrounded by lots of solutions, but you also have a lot of hurdles. And I think that if we look in Canada in the last 5, 6, 7 years, there's been much more prominence given to First Nations. And so First Nations now is another hurdle you have to get through, and it's a fairly new system, and it's quite complex, and it's very frustrating, I think, because no one seems to really have a direction. So that's slowed everything down in Canada. In the US, you obviously have no real political base that supports it. And then, of course, in Mexico, you have all the other associated problems, which is, can you be truly transparent? Can you conform to the levels of ESG that are being asked of you? So I think the raw materials are there, but it's going to take a great deal of effort to get them to market if you want to domestically or produce close by, where you can truck the raw material rather than ship.
Wow.
Well, truly amazing stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's
educational every time we have you on. Thank you very much.
yeah.
Amazing.
Louis, it's always great to talk to you, and we certainly appreciate your time on this Saturday morning, and we hope to talk to you again soon. If you got any updates, feel free to give us a call. We'll get you back on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Be safe.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a great weekend. Always fascinating to talk to him. When I found out that we were going to have him, it's like, really? I didn't know that.
Mike, we need to do a remote from a mine.
You know what?
Now,
I can
let's-
only imagine getting the signal out of a mine.
well,
we can't even get it out of the
There'd be a lot of
garage.
wires. To be a lot of
Let's just
wires.
go to New York and sit down with Lewis and do the show from there.
We get to New York, but we can't get to the SEMA show in Las Vegas. That's good.
Well, George Skelton says the largest iron mine in Texas is at the Lone Star Steel mine. So maybe there's one in Texas we could go to.
Okay. If we'd love to hear from you. Just shoot us an email. The address here is info@inwheeltime.com. Got some news stories that I wanted to get to. The U.S. arm of automaker Stellantis has issued a do not drive warning to roughly 250,000 older model year vehicles that are subject to Takata airbag recalls. Again and still are the two words that I can think of. Models included in the warning include 2005 to 2010 Dodge Magnums, Chargers, Challengers, and Chrysler 300s.
There's a lot of those out there.
Yeah.
NHTSA is telling all vehicle owners of those models to check to see if their vehicle has an open Takata airbag recall. You can do that by going to safercar.gov. Type in the VIN number, which you can find not only up there on the dash pad, but you can also find it in your wallet or on your cell phone. And it's called the VIN number that comes with your car insurance that you're supposed to have.
Yeah, it's easy to find.
Yeah, easy to find. The warning comes after two such airbags exploded in two separate incidents involving 2010 Dodge Chargers, killing two people.
Wow.
The top auto safety regulator said a third death is suspected. Left unrepaired, recalled Takata airbags are increasingly dangerous as the risk of an explosion rises as vehicles age. All customers who have the airbags will receive a free repair. A free repair. The Takata recall has been the largest in global automotive history. More than 100 million vehicles have been recalled worldwide. Wow.
I was really surprised when I read that because by now I've done recalls on the recalls.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
On my Ram truck. And it just the idea that somebody hasn't done anything just surprises me.
Yeah, especially the fact that you risk getting killed.
Yes.
You think that would.
Well, you would hope that the person would check their car regularly, but if you're looking at, these are 15-year-old cars in some instances, and it may have gone through multiple hands before it, and so the manufacturer may be mailing a recall notice to the person who owned it 3 cars ago.
Right.
Well, but
I think they
again-
need to put a requirement on the used car sale of getting a safercar.gov inspection.
I think what they need to do is they need to put it on hold through your registration.
Okay, same thing. Okay. Oh, registration would be more frequent than selling.
Have you seen some of the cars on the road lately?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every time that the car gets sold, or every time you go and renew the registration, which you do in Texas at least once a year,
Yes.
Just did mine.
that would be, hey, you got a recall. We can't register your vehicle. You need to go get that fixed. Because they certainly do it with your state inspection.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say with the state inspection. Make it part of their inspection. We're going in. You've got a recall on your car. You've now been officially notified. No more excuses. Yeah, it's just part of the inspection.
Well, and then hold up the registration until they go get it done.
Well, I don't know that you could do that, but you could try.
Why?
It's the government. They can do whatever they
Well, you
want.
can do that with any part of the safety issue on an
Speaking
inspection.
of recalls, Hyundai recalling 44,396.2 crossovers, recommending owners park their vehicle outside after discovering a defect that could cause an electrical short and a thermal event. NHTSA said the recall affects 2018 Santa Fe Sport models produced between May 1st of 2017 through May 10th of 2018 at the Kia Georgia plant in West Point, Georgia. Something going on over there in Georgia, I guess. The new action is in addition to a 500,000 vehicle recall earlier this year affecting a variety of 2016 to 2019 Santa Fe models, as well as 14 to 15 Tucsons, 16 to 18 K900s, and 14 to 16 Sportage models.
Well, at least they spread it around.
They do, yeah. So go to safercar.gov at any point, at any time, type in your VIN number, and it will tell you whether your car has had a recall.
You get a recall. You get a recall. You
Everybody
get a
gets
Thanks,
a
Oprah.
recall.
So
Yeah.
you heard that the Ford Mustang Mach-E is now going to have an exhaust system put on it. But this isn't like the Chrysler one. This one's a speaker that projects an exhaust noise.
Thank you.
Good for them.
Time now for a quick break. We'll be right back. You're on the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show on iHeartRadio. Everyone at the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In at the Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex in Katy, thank you for participating in the best cruise in around and look forward to seeing you again. You'll hear about the next cruise in date right here on In Wheel Time. Next time you're in the West Houston Energy Corridor area, be sure and stop in at the original Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex at I-10 and Highway 6 or the Katy location on the Grand Parkway at Kingsland Boulevard. When passing through Beaumont or College Station, stop in and have Lupi's award-winning beef fajitas and frozen margaritas. There's always a celebration at Lupi Tortilla. Lupi Tortilla founder Stan Holt and his wife Sheila are winning racers on the NHRA drag racing circuit and have a collection of hot rods and classics that everyone appreciates. Look for them at the next Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In. The date will be announced soon and will once again be held at the Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex on 99 and Kingsland Boulevard, just south of I-10 and Katy. We'll give you all the details right here on the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show and online. Donations benefit God's Garage. We'll see you then. You own a car you love. Well, why not let Gulf Coast Auto Shield protect it? Houstonian John Gray invites you to his state-of-the-art facility to introduce you to his specialist team of auto enthusiasts. We promise you'll be impressed. Whether you're looking to massage your original paint to a like-new appearance, apply a ceramic coating, install a paint protection film, nano-ceramic window tint, or new windshield protection called ExoShield, Gulf Coast Auto Shield is where Houston's car people go. Curbed your wheels? Instead of buying new, why not have them repaired? How about a professionally installed radar detector? Gulf Coast Auto Shield does that too. Get a peek inside the shop and look at the services offered by getting online and heading to gcautoshield.com. Better yet, stop by their facility at 11275 South Sam Houston Tollway, just south of the Southwest Freeway, and get a personal tour. Gulf Coast Auto Shield is your place to go for all things exterior. Call them today, 832-930-5655 or gcautoshield.com. The award-winning In Real Time Car Talk Show is available on the most popular podcast channels out there in 30-minute episodes. We realize our 3-hour live show can be difficult to catch in its entirety, so now you can listen every day to a convenient, fresh 30-minute episode. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible, along with a dozen more. In Real Time has the most informative automotive guest interviews and new car reviews, along with popular features including Conrad's Car Clinic and This Week in Auto History, along with automotive news headlines. Our live broadcast airs every Saturday, 8 to 11 Central on InRealTime.com, the iHeart app, and on YouTube. Be sure to say hello when we're broadcasting from the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In, Autorama, and the Houston Auto Show, among others. Now, it's easier than ever to hear about all things automotive all week long. You're invited to join fellow car enthusiasts in becoming part of the ever-growing In Real Time Car Talk family. Don't forget those 30-minute podcast episodes on your favorite podcast channel. Boy, that's loud.
It is.
It's your go-to place for everything entertaining car talk, the In Real Time Car Talk Show. Good morning to you. Just ahead, we try to make heads or tails with car insurance by talking to the folks at Lending Tree. Jeff has a feature on the rerun world of Motor Trend TV.
Yes.
Later, we talk to Ford about the F-150 Lightning, plus the stories making automotive news headlines, along with Conrad's Car Clinic. It's all straight ahead on this edition of the In Real Time Car Talk Show. Howdy, along with Mike out of this world Mars, King Conrad DeLong. We need more Jeff Seekin. I'm Don Armstrong. Glad you could join us for this Saturday morning. Gentlemen, how's everybody?
Doing well.
Wonderful. Glad to be here.
Super duper.
Had frost on my windshield this morning.
Of course, now Mars lives out in the northwest part of town. And that's
what Conrad
No,
does.
Conrad does.
I'm
Mars.
sorry.
Mars lives in the far east.
Mars. We don't.
Mars
know-
lives next to Louisiana.
I was just going to say we don't really know where Mars lives. It's a place called Neaterville, and it's kind of like Hooterville,
Pixley.
Pixley. Well, that's the town next door.
Yeah, it's the big town.
But at any rate, so I'm sorry. You live up on the northwest
He
side.
lives by Raleigh.
Had frost.
Frost. Well, we didn't have frost here, I'm glad to say.
So I literally got out a credit card and was scraping my windshield before I left the house.
You
Yeah.
did not.
Yep. It's a little bit while I was late.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Well, we're all here, and we got a great show lined up for you today, and we hope that you enjoy it. 3 full hours of nothing but entertaining car talk.
Come
on. And matter of fact, speaking of which, joining us right now from Jersey is Divya. And Divya, I'm going to ask you that she did it earlier before we went on.
She did
the
it
air.
well, too.
She did it well. To pronounce your last name. And make it right now. Make it so we all know.
It's Sangameshwar.
That's why it's going to be Divya this morning. And we're just going to go with that.
That works for me.
Okay, thank you. So she is with a company called Lending Tree, and actually it's part of a larger group, and it's valuepenguin.com. So, and we're going to talk about auto insurance sticker shock. Now, me personally, I have not had this. Of course, I've got minimum car coverage on the Corvette because
Knock on wood.
because the Corvette is 22 years old now. So I don't have a lot invested in it, and it's just not worth it for me to spend gobs and gobs of money when I drive the car maybe once every couple of months for a day or two. So you can exclude me kind of from the conversation. So I'm going to be the outside looking in. Expected to increase 8.4% auto insurance in 2023 based on rate filings submitted by insurers in late 22. So I guess like groceries and everything else, it's going up too. Why?
It's very simple. You know, it hasn't been going up for several years. It's been fairly flat. But then the pandemic came, and with it, inflation. It's just more expensive to repair cars. There are labor shortages, so that's one part of it. The other part is we're all back on the roads again. We're going to work. We're going to school. And with more people on the road, there are more accidents. That means more claims and also more expensive claims from, like I said, really expensive to repair cars. And also other factors like bad weather, meaning there are more cars totaled because of flooding. We don't really think about that, but that's also a factor. So when you add all of this together, it just leads to higher insurance rates because insurance companies will set their rates for the year ahead based off of how much money they spent in the past year. So 2022 was an expensive year for them, so they're raising rates in 2023.
Of course they are. Yeah. And I understand that Illinois, of all places, has the largest rate hike averaging 17%, Arizona 15%, New Hampshire 13%. Why so much in those particular states?
So it's really hard for us to pin down why some states are going to have that much of a higher rate increase compared to other states. But it comes down to the same equation. More claims, more expensive claims lead to higher rates. There's also another factor. Insurance companies have to submit their rate increase requests to local authorities, the insurance commissioner's office, and it's a negotiation, and this is what they have negotiated to increase.
Divya,
So it may go back and forth a few times.
is it because of those states, the people are leaving those states, so the monetary pool is less for those states because folks are leaving, or is that a factor?
I mean, it's one of the factors. When you think of a place like Illinois, there's also, it's very snowy, so they may have more accidents. And insurance companies may also raise rates on other factors like, safety. Is that area high in crime? Like I know some parts of Illinois might be. And, even in a place like Florida, which has the second highest insurance rates, that's a state that gets a lot of hurricanes. So, that factors in our cars getting flooded and totaled. So it's a very complicated equation. It's really hard for us to give you specifics on why some states are seeing higher rate increases and some states aren't. But it comes down to the same basic numbers.
Does the
More claims, more expensive claims.
population
more
of
money spent on insurance.
does the population of retirees also impact that? The older the driver, the higher the incidence, the accident.
That's a really good question. It probably does, but when we've done the math on it, we've actually found that younger drivers are a little more expensive to insure than older drivers. I'm talking 16 to 20 age group. They tend to be much more higher risk than older drivers. They're more likely to get into dangerous accidents. So the age of the driver might be a factor, but I don't think it's as big a factor as the weather or just overall safety and risk of that area.
Well, one of the statistics that you provided us is the fact that some drivers that have lots of tickets, that those drivers, some of them, their premiums can jump by 52%.
Wow.
Holy Toledo.
Wow.
I mean, that's on average, and that's the average for speeding, a DUI, and an at-fault crash. So it's a lot higher in some states. If you look at the table, it's 115% in North Carolina.
Wow.
And I don't think it's so bad in Texas, though. I feel like Texas is a little more forgiving.
Yeah, we're safer down here.
But your rate can also be impacted for a non-at-fault incident, correct?
It can be, but it won't be as much. It will
So,
be very small compared to an at-fault accident or a DUI. A DUI is probably the worst thing
Oh,
you
yeah.
can get
Well,
in terms
absolutely.
of
And it
your
should be,
insurance
yeah.
rates.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's for good reason. Now, when you have any kind of a traffic violation or you get into an accident where you're at fault, the insurance company is going to look at you and say, well, this person is a risky driver. So I need to adjust my rates
Bars.
to protect me from the risk of this driver. And that's why, they raise rates.
Well, here's another stat that you supplied in the fact that new electric vehicles will be 28% higher than new gasoline-powered cars. Why is that?
I mean, it's really, it comes down to how expensive electric vehicles are to repair. I mean, think about it. EVs are essentially computers on four wheels. They have a lot of technology built into them. The batteries are expensive to repair or replace. And when a car is expensive to buy and to repair, it automatically becomes expensive to insure.
And to continue on the conversation like that, for instance, the Tesla Model Y is averaging over $3,000, the highest insurance premium in 2023.
Wow.
I think the only car that's a little more expensive than that is a Porsche Taycan. And that's not surprising because it's an electric sports car. But the Model Y was a little surprising to us because it's a car that's, bought by families. It's a mid, in the Tesla universe, I guess it's a mid-priced car. However, insurance companies will set rates based off of the previous year's claims and, cost of claims. So I guess there must have been a lot of Tesla Model Ys that got into accidents in the past couple of years.
What is the average?
So expensive.
What is the average monthly? Well, let me do it. Let's do it by the year. What's the average yearly premium for a regular run-of-the-mill car?
Absolutely. So for 2023, that's expected to be $1,780 for full coverage car insurance.
$1,780.
So roughly $300 a month.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
But keep in mind, this is an average.
No, I understand.
This is an average. It includes Michigan. So Michigan always skews the number because Michigan is the most expensive state for car insurance.
It's more expensive than
Texas
California?
is actually not too bad. Michigan is the most expensive state to get insurance.
I'll be darned.
Full stop. It is 168% more than the average cost of insurance. I think their average annual costs for 2023, we pegged at $4,788 per year.
Wow.
That's unbelievable.
I would bet on California.
So down here in Texas, let's say you've got a 15-year-old granddaughter that just got her permit, and she's already got AAA. She's already signed up for AAA for the aspects that they give. So something like that, does that skew the number as well?
No. So when we calculated our average, we actually used a sample driver. And this sample driver is a 30-year-old who drives a Honda sedan, has a clean driving record, and good credit, because we wanted to do an apples to apples comparison to get into how much insurance companies are raising rates, independent of your driving factors, because that to us was the big story. Your rates could go up or not go up as much as what we're saying because of your driving record or because of, your discounts or other factors. But if insurance companies are raising rates, then we wanted to let Americans know so that when they get their renewals in the mail this year, they're not going to be shocked and think, hey, I didn't drive much. I was a good driver. I didn't get a single ticket in my name, So why are my rates going up? Well, it's because insurance companies are raising them. And this is as pure a number as we can get for you without any outside factors.
Let me ask you this. So why is it that I see on television all the time that advertising for Allstate will save me $652 a year? And then AAA says, I'll save you $595 a year. How is that possible?
Well, that's the next point I was going to make. Just because your rates are going up doesn't mean you're stuck with them. You made a really good point about the ads, because what the ads are encouraging you to do is shop around and look for other insurance companies to see if they'll offer you a better deal. And more often than not, they will. We did a survey about this in 2022, and what we found is less than 30% of Americans shop around for insurance, but 95% of those who did said they were able to shave off some dollars from their insurance premiums. Some of them said they were able to save as much as $200 per year on their insurance premiums. So, wow. And this is an average figure based off of a sample of 1,500 respondents. Your actual savings could be a lot higher depending on your type of insurance and the insurance company you're with.
So is there
In short, it doesn't really pay for you to be loyal to your insurance company. Sorry, go ahead.
is there a repository that I can go to and type in my information, the car that I have, my driving record, et cetera, my age, all that sort of thing, that I can say, okay, I want to compare on one sheet of paper the cost of insurance for Allstate, AAA, Progressive, Geico, State Farm. Is there such a thing?
Well, yeah, I mean, valleypenguin.com is one such website. I can think of a few others. QuoteWizard.com is another website that offers this service. The Zebra, Insurify. There are a lot of online comparison websites that you can visit to get all of this information all in one place. But of course, they may not ask you for a lot of information, but they'll ask you for car model, your full name, date of birth, and potentially a phone number so that insurance companies can get in touch with you. It can be a little much, but it's helpful. If you don't want to go down that route, if you feel uncomfortable putting your personal information into a website, you can always try to get in touch with a local independent insurance agent. So they're not affiliated with one company, but they sell for multiple companies. Give them a call and ask them, hey, this is my name. I want to get insurance for my car. What are some of the best rates out there? And actually, independent agents have a slight edge over some of the websites. They'll also pull from smaller local insurance companies that may offer better deals than some of the big ones. So it's always good to do your research before you sign on the renewal and send it back.
Do I have to worry about getting ripped off by some fly-by-night insurance company, or is there some sort of regulatory agency that it can assure me that I'm not going to, write a check every month for $150 for car insurance, and then when it comes time for me to file a claim, there's no money in the pot?
So it's very small insurance companies that you've never heard of. That's always a risk. And I feel like some of those companies target people in communities where there isn't a lot of education around insurance. So that's a good point you brought up. Before you sign the dotted line on any insurance plan, go look up the Better Business Bureau or call up your state insurance regulatory office. Every state has an insurance regulator, and you can call them up and ask them about this company that you're going to sign up.
Interesting.
Are they legit? Are there complaints against them?
So-
A lot of times complaints are submitted against insurance companies that you can view. The other place you can check them out is the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. They even publish a report every year on complaints submitted against insurance companies. So that's something you can check as well.
Well, in the car business, I talk to a lot of body shop managers, body shop owners, and I look at them as a real good resource as to what insurance companies do the right thing in repairing your vehicle. Some of them are, they're always looking to cut corners with the shops. They pay a fixed fee to the shop for the labor, which is less than what their posted door rate is. All that's
Right.
kind of negotiated at some level. Some of them want them to use non-OEM parts. All of that, I assume, is at the insurance company's discretion and probably part of the document that you sign when
your premium.
when you sign
Yeah.
up for the premium. Is that they may be using non-OEM parts to repair your vehicle.
And not
They
only
may
that-
have only certain shops that you're allowed to take your vehicle to get the repair done.
And what's the length of a loaner car? Is it 2 days, 3 days, a week?
And what's the price of the loaner?
Exactly.
The rental
The
car.
reimbursement.
So
So all
It's really interesting.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I said it's really interesting you brought up the loaner car thing because one of my neighbors ran into that problem with their insurance company. So their car was in the shop for about 3 weeks, but their insurance policy only allowed a certain amount of money for a loaner car. I think it was less than $1,000. And we live in Jersey. It's expensive to rent cars in my state. So their insurance only covered their loaner car for less than a week, which means for the remaining 2 weeks they were out of pocket. And
It's expensive to do anything in New Jersey.
Mike,
but I
Mike
believe
knows
that
this
the
because
rising
Conrad knows this because he's originally from New York. So
We
there
look
you
so
go.
much alike.
Yeah, I'm a Westchester County, New York guy. So,
the Westchester County is definitely
but
nicer face than
it's
Central
not
New
cheap
Jersey,
either.
where I'm in.
Yeah. Divya, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. It's valuepenguin.com, correct?
Yes, and ValuePenguin.com is a subsidiary of LendingTree.
Very nice.
Interesting.
Well, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Let's stay in touch. If you got any other news that you'd like to share, please give us a holler.
Thank you very much.
I will. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
The same. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was good.
Good information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it most definitely was. Hey, I'd like to remind everybody that if you'd like to get in touch with us here, you can always shoot us an email. Our address is info@inwheeltime.com. And we appreciate you joining us today. Time now for the In Wheel Time racing calendar. And racing has started, I guess, down in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Well, last weekend was the 24 Hours of Daytona.
I watched it.
And the Acras went 1-2 in the new DPI hybrid. And then Cadillac went
3, 4, 5. But they were 1 and 2 until circumstances.
I think they made some bad
calls in the paddock.
in the pits.
Yeah.
And then Corvette finished number 2 in GTD Pro. So that was good to see Corvette back because Corvette stunk it up last year.
Yeah, they did. Well, drivers have a lot to do with that.
And new
kind of
car.
kind of the same driver team this year
Yeah.
though there was last year. But yeah, the C8 was all new for them. And you got to remember at IMSA there's something called BOP, balance of power. So they start adding weight and putting restrictors on the intake and changing the amount of onboard fuel so that you have to either pit more often or less often. So they start playing around with
Depending
that,
how they map it.
trying to
Yeah.
balance the vehicle's performance out.
Yeah, and make the race interesting.
Right.
I got it.
So tomorrow night is Clash at the Coliseum. So it's inside the LA Coliseum. They put an
Great.
asphalt, basically a quarter-mile asphalt track.
Wonder what the weather's supposed to be out there tomorrow night, because it's been raining in Southern California, which is unusual.
It never rains in Southern California.
So the
There's a song
says.
about that.
Yeah.
Well,
Spain.
I don't know, but I think they're hoping it's nice and dry because they spent a lot of money asphalting that.
Yeah.
And then Daytona duels are the 16th of February, and then the Daytona 500 is the 19th of February. So generally that is the week after the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl is the 14th.
One of these days, I want to go to the
Or
Daytona
the 12th,
500.
excuse me. Well, that's a bucket list thing to go to for me as well as the Daytona 500.
Yeah.
Almost went one year when I worked with General Motors and got screwed on a
No.
contest.
Well, I will tell you that I've actually been to the Daytona Speedway.
Yep.
Because, my daughter went down there to Embry-Riddle University, which is just on the other side of the airport there, and got a chance to go over there and take a tour. And it was really
Go to the
cool.
museum.
Went to, all that.
That'd be-
It was neat.
That'd be cool.
It's a very interesting place because, obviously it's not too far from the beach and everything is just pancake flat down
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
So unlike any other racetrack that I've been to. All right, Mr. Zekin over here has
Yeah. Well,
got some bad news.
Well, not bad news, just a little disappointing news. You watch Motor Trend TV and you've got all these reruns of these car shows. When are they going to put a new one out? You get television shows like Bitchin' Rides comes on and they run 4 episodes and then they go into reruns from 2018.
Oh,
Why?
that kind of rerun. I thought it was rerun from the TV show. The guy,
No.
Mars was doing his dancing here
Yeah,
before
different.
doing
No.
the rerun.
No, his medication was kicking in. That's why he was doing it.
yeah,
that or not
he
kicking
wish
in.
it. I was just
So,
going to say, he wish it would.
I figured I'd do some research on, well, we used to be Velocity, but Motor Trend TV was actually called Discovery HD Theater back in 2002, which was the first 24/7 Motor Trend type show. From there, it went into producing shows like American Chopper. Remember those guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
Animal Planet, was on there as well. Corwin's Quest was part of their shows that they produced. So from there, it went into Velocity in 2011. No longer the HD theater type thing. And then in 2011, later on in that year, they went to Velocity, strictly Velocity, not HD Velocity.
So that was all automotive.
All automotive, getting into that. And then later on, they went Velocity. Motor Trend. So there's a lot of name changes and a lot of things that they're doing that evidently made them successful. But today's market, I'm not really happy with it. So as Motor Trend, they branded that, and it's called TEN, which was
10.
named 10, but it was announced it was the Entertainment Network, sort of like an ESPN thing.
Yeah.
So they went into that for international. They went into Canada. But here's my problem. You've got a total of 97 shows, and I've got 31 of them here. 97 shows, and 96 of them are in rerun. There's a few of them that aren't. So when I'm watching Motor Trend to get maybe some education or to have fun looking at a show that you want about building, they're there. You can look them up, and it's just
Well, it's all about making money.
yeah.
And the bottom line is that the production costs are extremely expensive with these semi-reality shows. It takes months to produce one show because what we see is a very condensed version.
A 1 hour show of a car build that took 6-7 months to do.
14 months in some respects. And if you watch some of these shows, they'll be working on this particular vehicle, but in the background, there's a vehicle that they built and finished 2 weeks ago on that show. And I understand the filming and I understand the production part of it. It's got to be take and retake and take and retake. I get it. But don't fool me.
Well, the other thing is, and I think that perfect example of the frustration of these guys that own these shops is Phantom Works. Dan
Good
up there,
point.
that
He's
said,
just starting a new show.
he said,
Is he?
you guys get out.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't do this anymore. You're killing me here. I can't make any money because there's a lot of time spent that he has to sit down and they feed him words to say. The producer, the on-site producer, has to feed him words to say to stitch this show together to make it all make sense. And it takes a lot of time. It's all just not a reality off the cuff kind of stuff. You see some of those segments, but for the most part, to bring a car full circle into a television show, redo or repair or whatever it is that they're talking about, all of that takes time. And if they usually have 2 or 3 guys. Have a series that goes for 12 shows. Think of how long that took to get the 12 shows, and a lot of money.
And there's some of these that there's shows that have only run 4 episodes and they're off the air.
Yep.
Some have run 30 plus episodes and they're in reruns now, and so on for their season, because a season's not a year. A season could be 6 weeks.
Correct.
A season could be 8 weeks, depending on the production.
Yep.
But there is a show, Full Custom Garage. Ian Rousseau, he's got some fresh new stuff on there, which is very, very cool.
Well, I think they're now doing Texas Metal is new, and we've
Texas
had Bill.
Metal is new, yep.
We've had Bill
Bill on-
Carlton
yep.
on the show,
Absolutely.
and he talked about exactly what Don was talking about just a few minutes ago. What a pain it is to do business when they are filming there, and,
Right.
and he says, it's quite interfering with their ability to just do business because the film crew has to take priority. And they're in the way while they're doing all this other stuff.
And do they get paid a lot for it? And there's a show called Shorty's Paint or something that derived from
Not a
another
fan,
show.
yeah.
Not a fan either, because it's all about Shorty. So listen up there,
It would-
Motor Trend.
Yeah.
We talked to a couple of times Jamie Torres out in New Mexico with Dominion Customs. He kind of got into that Tackle My Ride. It's kind of like a Pimp My Ride, but it was NFL players involved in it.
Right.
And it was him and his 2 sons in this small town in New Mexico, and they basically did the same thing. They lost all their regular business because they were so involved in that.
And they lose
had to
employees.
give it up.
They lose good people too.
Well, it was him and his sons, and
Yeah.
that's really what was killing them because
Well,
they didn't.
in some of the bigger productions, you'll see And what happened to that guy that was doing a certain function? He's not there anymore because he quit.
Want to remind everybody that the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show is available 24/7 through the iHeartRadio app. Just look for In Wheel Time Car Talk. We also video stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, InWheelTime.com, and podcasts are at your fingertips on over a dozen of the most popular podcast outlets out there. The In Wheel Time Car Talk Show continues right after this quick break. Everyone at the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In at the Lupe Tortilla Tex-Mex in Katy, thank you for participating in the best cruise in around and look forward to seeing you again. You'll hear about the next cruise in date right here on In Wheel Time. Next time you're in the West Houston Energy Corridor area, be sure and stop in at the original Lupe Tortilla Tex-Mex at I-10 and Highway 6 or the Katy location on the Grand Parkway at Kingsland Boulevard. When passing through Beaumont or College Station, stop in and have Lupe's award-winning beef fajitas and frozen margaritas. There's always a celebration at Lupe Tortilla. Lupe Tortilla founder Stan Holt and his wife Sheila are winning racers on the NHRA drag racing circuit and have a collection of hot rods and classics that everyone appreciates. Look for them at the next Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In. The date will be announced soon and will once again be held at the Lupe Tortilla Tex-Mex on 99 and Kingsland Boulevard, just south of I-10 and Katy. We'll give you all the details right here on the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show and online. Donations benefit God's Garage. We'll see you then. You own a car you love. Well, why not let Gulf Coast Auto Shield protect it? Houstonian John Gray invites you to his state-of-the-art facility to introduce you to his specialist team of auto enthusiasts. We promise you'll be impressed. Whether you're looking to massage your original paint to a like-new appearance, apply a ceramic coating, install a paint protection film, nano-ceramic window tint, or new windshield protection called ExoShield, Gulf Coast Auto Shield is where Houston's car people go. Curbed your wheels? Instead of buying new, why not have them repaired? How about a professionally installed radar detector? Gulf Coast Auto Shield does that too. Get a peek inside the shop and look at the services offered by getting online and heading to gcautoshield.com. Better yet, stop by their facility at 11275 South Sam Houston Tollway, just south of the Southwest Freeway, and get a personal tour. Gulf Coast Auto Shield is your place to go for all things exterior. Call them today, 832-930-5655 or gcautoshield.com. The award-winning In Wheel Time Car Talk Show is available on the most popular podcast channels out there in 30-minute episodes. We realize our 3-hour live show can be difficult to catch in its entirety, so now you can listen every day to a convenient, fresh 30-minute episode. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible, along with a dozen more. In Wheel Time has the most informative automotive guest interviews and new car reviews, along with popular features including Conrad's Car Clinic and This Week in Auto History, along with automotive news headlines. Our live broadcast airs every Saturday, 8 to 11 Central on InWheelTime.com, the iHeart app, and on YouTube. Be sure to say hello when we're broadcasting from the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In, Autorama, and the Houston Auto Show, among others. Now, it's easier than ever to hear about all things automotive all week long. You're invited to join fellow car enthusiasts in becoming part of the ever-growing In Wheel Time Car Talk family. Don't forget those 30-minute podcast episodes on your favorite podcast channel. To another In Wheel Time podcast, a 30-minute mini version of the In Wheel Time Car Show that airs live every Saturday morning, 8 to 11 a.m. Central. Yes, friends, it is the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show. This segment, Patrick Olson from Carfax joins us to talk about all things used. Conrad will have the In Wheel Time Car Clinic, and we'll also take a look at this week's auto news in this half hour. Howdy, along with Mike out of this world Mars, King Conrad yawning DeLong, and we need more Jeff Zekin. And I'm Don Armstrong. We're all here for you today, along with Patrick Olson from Carfax. Patrick, good morning to you, and thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well. Where do we start? Where do we start with the used car market? That things have kind of gone upside down. They were getting record prices for used cars a month ago, and now not so much. We've heard that some used car lots, 20 to 30% less money these days than it was. Drop in value than it was just recently.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see. Consumers for a long time, I think, were holding off on buying cars, and I think that dealers have finally burned through the inventory they had, and now they're seeing more inventory coming back, and consumers are waiting for that deal, and that's forcing dealers, I think, to have to figure out a way to move those cars off the lot.
Now, do you see that with the inquiries that you get at Carfax?
Absolutely. So last year when stimulus money came out, tax refunds came out, we saw a huge demand for used cars. This year, it's been a little quieter, and so I think consumers have been leery of overpaying too much and afraid of the depreciation of what might come. And now I think dealers are having to respond to that.
Do you think that the prices are going to continue to drop for a while?
It's hard to say. As new cars finally get the chips that they've been missing, the new car inventories opens up a little bit more. I think it's going to make consumers make some choices about, do they want to buy used or do they want to buy new?
Well, that's what I was
so
wondering.
I don't think it'll be a plummet, but I think there certainly will be an erosion in the high prices of used car over time.
Because if the new cars are now becoming available, those people, like you say, that were looking at maybe a 1 or 2 year old used car, they may go back to looking at new cars because now they have that option.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I will say this, to your point, is that the average price of new cars has gone up considerably over a year ago. So there's that balance there that you've got to look at your pocketbook and go, okay, am I willing to stick my neck out and pay a lot more for, in most cases, interest rates? Or do I stick with what I got, or do I go to the used car market where I can get probably more for the money?
And then who's incentivizing what? You got to look at manufacturers' incentives have somewhat gone away until just recently, and now they're starting back up. And you're seeing finance incentives, and you're seeing discount cash on the hood, again, trying to drive that market of selling new.
Yeah.
So, Patrick, let me ask you. So, my experience watching my kids has been that they don't look necessarily at, like Don said, the price has gone up significantly. The price has gone up, but what did that do to my car note? They seem always to me, and I think it's a mistake personally, but they always look at the car note. If my car note only goes up $5 or $10 because that new car costs more now, then that's no big deal. I'll take it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people buy at a monthly budget and they don't think about the long-term cost. And frankly, they're less concerned about extending the length of the loan. I mean, the average now is like 66, 67 months for a loan, where it used to be, not that long ago, 48 months. So I think a lot of people think, it's just part of my budget. And so I'll extend it out some. And of course, cars, thankfully, are more reliable than they've ever been. And, the average age of a car now is like 12 years on the road. So they're not as concerned. Like 30 years ago when I was buying a car, I was very concerned if cars would make it to 100,000 miles. Today, 200, 300, not out of the realm of the possible. So I think people are happier. Happy is a funny word there, are more willing to extend that car loan because they know the car should last them easily that long.
What is the average price of a used vehicle in the most popular category? I'm going to assume that it's going to be a mid-size SUV.
That's absolutely the most popular category. I don't have a specific price, but I think for used, I think it's somewhere in the $30,000 range.
Does the formula still exist for every $1,000 of car price? It's a $20 car payment for every $1,000. If it's $2,000, it's you base it on that, the formula.
Yeah, I'm not that far in the weeds on pricing of cars.
Yeah, I would think probably the interest rate would have a bigger play on that.
That's true too. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've seen interest rates really come into play these days. And to Conrad's point about manufacturer incentives, I'm now seeing that in some vehicles, and here in Texas, it's mainly trucks, that I saw one just yesterday, as a matter of fact, $8,000 off of MSRP, and not 0% financing per se, but it's like 1% or 10%, something like that. It's low.
Yeah, I think there was a point this summer when I was looking at rebates and deals with one of the guys who works for me. And he said, we are down from a year ago or a year and a half ago, 200 plus cars, 200 plus models having 0% of financing to like 40 models at 0% financing. And now we're starting to see that go back up and OEMs in particular are trying to create more financing. What's funny is the OEMs are trying really hard to limit production, but for too many of them, I think they see building the most cars as a point of pride. And they have to balance that with making their dealers happy, because if there's fewer cars, dealers get a better margin or a better price on the car. And we've definitely seen in the past when automakers overproduce, it kind of buries dealers in inventory and drives down the price of the car, which dealers, of course, not wild about.
And one of the things about Carfax, you had mentioned earlier about the, used to be a 100,000-mile car, now it's a 200,000 or 300,000-mile car. Well, one of the bits of data you get from Carfax is the service history to go along with it,
yes,
if it's reported. And that's quite valuable to the used car buyer, is to see what the maintenance history and repair history of that vehicle is that comes in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we see on average for cars that have proof of being well maintained, that over time they're worth about $2,000 more when it comes time to resell than cars where you don't have that proof of service, right? And so it's definitely both in the interest of the owner, frankly, to keep their car up, right? So we have some recent data. We haven't published it, but we're going to publish soon. That says something like 30% of cars are behind on their oil change. Nearly half are behind on their tire rotation.
Oh, boy.
And so owners are not keeping up with what they need to do. And it's not just saving your car now, it's getting that value down the road. When you go to resell it, you're missing the opportunity to make sure that, it's money out of your pocket today, but it's going to be money in your pocket.
And the longevity of the vehicle as well.
Yes, absolutely.
If you wanted to go 250, 300,000 miles, you have to maintain it.
That's right.
Yep.
One of the things that I wanted to kind of go over, because we have some listeners that may not really understand what Carfax really does and how they do it. If you could explain that to us, for the person that doesn't, they've heard of Carfax, they see
Sure.
the ads on TV, but really don't know exactly how it works and why it's important.
Sure. So the heart of Carfax is really the data that we get on all these cars. And we are fast approaching 30 billion records that we have in our database. We're not there yet, but I think we'll get there soon. But the bottom line is we work with dealers, we work with service shops, we work with insurance companies and other agencies, more than 115,000 sources of data. And so what we do is we track all that for consumers. And so if you buy a Carfax vehicle history report on a car you're considering, or even the car you're selling, right? If you want to sell your car to a dealer or to a private party, you want to show them all the things that you've done to your car. You want to be a transparent seller. So we use that data to create those reports. But we're beyond that too. We have what we call our history-based value, which takes all of that specific data to your car. So if you go to another site that offers a value, they may look at your year, the make, the model, how many miles you have, what the relative condition of it is. Well, we look at all of that, plus we look at how often was it serviced? Was it ever in an accident? Was the accident minor or was the accident severe? Have you ever had hail damage, right? And we're weighing a lot more factors around the value, and we're looking at it in your zip code. So we're looking at what is your value in your market. If you're trying to sell a truck in Texas, that's a very different thing than if you're trying to sell a truck in New York City, right? The values are going to be very different depending on the laws of supply and demand. So we can also come up with a value for your car that you can use when you're ready to trade it in. And then finally, with our used car listings, what's great about them is every listing on the site has a free vehicle history report. So you don't have to pay for it. You get it right from the dealer to be able for you to check on the history of that car. So we're kind of a 360, look at the history of that car, of where it's been, what it's worth, and, helping you figure out which of those cars are the ones you want to buy.
How much does a Carfax report cost?
One costs $40, but if you buy three, it's three, I think, for $60 today, and then you get 6 for $100. And if you're looking to buy a car, typically you're looking at more than one car. So for me, better to buy a bunch, so I can save money on that, and look at a bunch of reports.
I did not know that I could sell my car on Carfax.
You can't. Let me be clear. We only have dealer listings on Carfax.
Dealer
but
listings.
You can sell your car using a Carfax to help the other buyers see where you've been.
I see. So used car dealers can
Yes.
list their cars on Carfax.
That's correct. Right. Whether they're an OEM shop or they're an independent, just a used car only lot.
So on the retained value of vehicles, which
Yes.
is a little thing, something that you guys really delve into,
Absolutely.
how are you analyzing the retained value of an internal combustion engine versus a pure EV? What's the value difference?
Well, I would say right now we're in our infancy, right? Because there are so few EVs in the market compared to internal combustion engines that it's really hard to say the difference yet.
The other way.
But we definitely see more and more people coming up with EVs, and we're certainly paying attention. I was in a meeting just this week where we're talking about how do we want to look at EVs, how do we want to think about them, what are the data points we need to provide to users that they're not already getting. So it's an exploding area. All these automakers are talking about lots and lots of models by 2030, but at the moment there's not a lot of differentiation.
So I'm confused. So I go into a dealership and I want to buy a car. They show me the Carfax, but I have to buy that from them?
No.
Okay,
So
that's
if,
where I'm confused.
if you go to a dealership and they show you the Carfax, that's them. Or if you go to a dealership where you found the car in Carfax used car listings, the VHR is free there. But if you're buying from a private party and you want the Carfax vehicle history report, then you have to buy it, or you could ask the guy selling it to buy it for you, which is kind of a sign of good faith and transparency.
That's where you were talking about buying multiple, because
Yes.
I'm looking for a car, and I've got 3 of them that I
Right.
want to choose between. So I want the Carfax on all 3 of them, so I can use that as part of my decision-making process.
Absolutely. Like if you find that Mustang wagon, you want to check it out, make sure it's started out as a Mustang wagon.
Now you're talking. Man,
You
it's my own
want that
heart.
car. I can
want
tell
it.
by the look on your face.
Oh boy.
Does Carfax have any data on diminished value for cars that have been in wrecks? Do you guys support that information for, say, an insurance claim?
Well, I don't know if we do it for the insurance claim, but we can tell you just by what we've seen that for cars with minor cosmetic damage, it's about a $500 hit to the value of a car. For cars with severe damage, it could be $1,500 to $2,000 off the value of the car.
So you look at it in this regard. Here's what the value is. Now, what you do with that information is kind of up to you.
Yes, that's right.
'Cause
and it's a negotiating point, and it's neither the starting nor the finish point, right? You've got to decide and who you're negotiating with, how much you're going to do with that number.
Right. Yeah. So it's part of that. Can we back up to your data collection process?
Sure.
You mentioned the independent shops. So I get the oil changed in my truck because it's disposing of oil nowadays is ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. So I take it someplace and have it done.
Yeah.
And it's an independent shop. I mean, if I were to get a Carfax on my truck to sell it, would that show up, or how would that work?
So we have a lot of deals with a lot of independent shops. We don't have every shop, though. I will tell you that we're always looking to add more. What you can do, though, we have a way in our Car Care app where you can upload the receipt and show people that you've got a receipt for it. It won't show up on the vehicle history report, but you can show proof of that in your own account.
Oh, okay.
So that you can save that information into your own account.
Because the repair shops have to report to Carfax. It doesn't
Yes,
automatically
and many do,
happen.
but not
Right.
all.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I
they
guess
have- they
that
have
would
to
be a question for them. Is this information going up to
Right.
Carfax? And
Well, and to be honest, that's where consumers can take the reins and ask the shop manager, hey, I would like you to work with Carfax because this now shows up on my vehicle history report and I'm going to get more money down the road.
Right.
And because you do that, I'm more willing to come back to your shop to get my service here because I know that it's a virtuous cycle, right? I do the work, I pay for it, it keeps the truck going, but in the end, I want to get paid off for that. And you can help me do that, Mr. Service Shop owner.
So
I see
my
it.
my
Yeah,
question
yeah.
is, you buy a car, and you go to your insurance company. You say, "This is my new car. I want to move all my insurance policies over." Are they in any way obligated, or should they be, or can they be obligated through an insurance company to say, "Did you get a Carfax report?" would that help you or not?
I've never heard of an insurance company asking for one. I always think more data in hand is more useful than not. I've never been in a situation, FICO scores, right, or whatever. The more data I've had, the better off I've been. So, I don't think insurance companies require it or demand it, or even financing companies for that matter.
Well, I would think that they would want it to better.
But it's
to
not the
better
worst
deal.
idea.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, because I could see more of a finance company wanting to make sure the value's there.
Do you have a Carfax on my 2001 Corvette?
Absolutely.
You
We
do?
have going back to 1983 is how far back we go.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
if you're looking for a car that's 21 years old, you can probably get a Carfax on that.
You can absolutely get a Carfax on that, yes.
But it's written in
assuming
stone.
that it's still in operation, right? If check the VIN, and I won't say we have 100%, but we've got 99 point I don't know how many % chance that we've got it from all the way back to 83.
That is truly amazing. Because let's just say, for instance, that the little old lady that lives down the street that goes to church and goes to the grocery store once a week, that has hardly any miles on her 1985 Oldsmobile, and she's wanting to sell it because she can't drive
You
anymore.
can get a Carfax on
I
it.
can get a Carfax on it.
Champagne color.
Yeah. So, at any rate, well, Patrick, it's great to talk to you. Thank you so much for explaining all this to us. We really appreciate it. I know that this is going to get lots of hits on YouTube.
Great
And
information.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it truly is. And thank you very much. And we'll hope to check in with you in another 6 months or so and find out how the used car market's going.
Carfax.com.
Amen. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
bet.
Hey,
Thank
we'd
you.
love to hear from you too. Just shoot us an email. The address is info@nwheeltime.com. Time now for Conrad's Car Clinic.
All right.
Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about hybrid vehicles. Hybrid vehicle owners are all about fuel economy and decreased emissions. Don't overlook the combustion engines in hybrid vehicles. Your customers may not understand that their HEV still needs to be serviced on the combustion engine side of things because, like we just talked with Carfax, without proper maintenance, the important benefits of a hybrid vehicle that they provide can be lost and serious problems can develop. Why do hybrid vehicles need to be serviced? All hybrid vehicles have that start-stop feature that you hate.
Yep.
Well, that start-stop feature can promote instability in the fuel, can promote carbonizing of the intake valves in the combustion chamber. They can have an effect on the acceleration of oxidation of the fuel and corrosion of the fuel in the gas tank.
It's hard on an engine.
It's very hard on an engine, and additionally, that start-stop causes hot and cold fluctuations that can lower the average crankcase temperature, so the oil never really gets hot. And the oil needs to get hot so it purges whatever moisture's in there.
Hot like me.
That it evaporates, yes. And the best way to prevent a hybrid vehicle problem is with regular preventative maintenance. And it should be considered based, my opinion, on hours, not necessarily mileage. So,
Good point, especially in sitting in traffic all the time.
correct. Hybrid electric vehicles are powered by an electric motor, generally is the propulsion piece to it, but the internal combustion engine still needs to be maintained. Battery power reduces combustion engine use when it's not needed, but idling at stoplights and that start-stop is really detrimental to
Let me ask you a question about that. So I've got a hybrid, and they recommend that I change the oil every 6,000 miles. You're saying maybe perhaps I need to go to 5,000 or 4,000 miles on my oil change.
Or based on time.
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
there's not a timer in the car on the amount of time
Yeah,
the
not a-
engine is
Yeah,
running.
I would shorten the mileage on it because of the start-stop feature. You got to remember that start-stop feature dilutes the oil with fuel, because the way that they restart most of these is not a starter starting, is they stop the engine at an exact point, spray fuel and ignite the spark to push the engine down. Well, that happens and you get fuel dilution of the engine oil. So that again deters the damages the engine oil short term.
Mm-hmm.
So changing it more frequently, I think, is a better idea. Since the gasoline engine doesn't run as often in a hybrid, it doesn't need as much attention, right? Wrong. Again, that start-stop feature is detrimental to the engine oil and the heat cycling of the engine oil. HEVs can actually accelerate conditions and then, in turn, reduce the fuel economy and loss of power and poor throttle response. And these problems can be prevented with regular maintenance on your HEV. And I don't think enough people recognize that an HEV can require additional maintenance even though you're running on electric all the time. The other thing is E85 engines. If you're running E85, you need to change your oil at 3,000 miles.
At E85 engine, do they have that in an actual hybrid?
Oh yeah.
They do?
Yeah, you can get
Oh,
E85.
But
But
it
most,
seems
I don't
it's-
think many people are actually running E85 fuel.
it just seems to be like that's kind of counterproductive.
Well, it's compounding the problem
Well, besides that, it's also costing you more money in fuel.
because
Because it sucks
E85s
more.
get horrible fuel economy.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you, sir. Well, back to Carlos, as I call him, Gosen. I think that
Oh,
his
boy.
real name is Gone.
We should
but
have him on the
I
show.
like Gosen better.
Get him on the show, Mike.
Father and son sentenced to serve time in a Japanese prison for smuggling Carlos Gosen out of the country in a large musical equipment case.
Nice.
Were transferred to the U.S. a week ago, ending another chapter of the corporate saga involving the former chairman of Renault and Nissan.
They're getting the band back together.
Michael Taylor, the father and a former U.S. Green Beret, and his son Peter were imprisoned last year after they pleaded guilty to helping the auto industry executive flee trial in late 2019 and make his way to Beirut. Gosen was arrested in Japan in 2018 on charges of underreporting income and other corporate crimes, which he's denied. Federal Bureau of Prisons flew both out of Japan late in October after the two governments agreed to let them serve the remainder of their sentences in the U.S., according to Peter, and was released soon there after arrival. Michael is soon to be set free, pending procedural matters.
Of course.
What prison is he in? Did he come over to?
For no bond bail.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Because we could do a remote, Mike.
We could do a remote.
From prison.
A prison remote.
Prison remote.
We got a federal place right out there in close to my house.
Really?
Yeah.
And you're in it.
Not today.
Not today.
Yeah, right
But
by
there
the
is one
airport.
out there,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
by the
right
airport.
by the airport.
Yeah.
Speaking of lawsuits, Lucid Group filed a federal lawsuit here in Texas accusing the state's rules on auto dealerships of economic protectionism that hurt the company's ability to sell its electric vehicles here. Well, you know, Tesla has done it since their inception here, and they've done quite well. In a suit filed in Austin, Lucid said the state is acting anti-competitive competitively in forcing companies to sell their products through established dealerships.
Duh.
The Newark, California-based company, which markets its vehicles online and through a network of Lucid-owned studios, maintains that its direct sales and in-house after-sales service are so closely tied that using an independent franchise dealer would not be economically viable and would harm the business. BS. The case comes as Lucid struggles to develop its business selling its high-end plug-in Air sedan, which currently retails for more than $100,000. Now, we saw one down at
Was that an Air or was that an Ocean?
No, it was an Air.
It was an Air.
Stunning
vehicle. Oh, yeah.
Stunningly beautiful car.
It is. It's not my cup of tea, but whatever. Lucid's
pretty.
testing out a similar legal strategy to one tried largely successfully by Tesla in Michigan. After more than 3 years of litigation, the party settled, and Michigan consumers can now buy Tesla vehicles and get them serviced there. Austin Texas-based Tesla faces similar challenges here in Texas and is unable to sell directly to Texans.
Can you get
I have a friend of mine that has one, and he said it was the easiest, smoothest way that he has ever
Purchased
bought
a
a
car.
car.
Can you get a Tesla through Carvana? A used one?
Yeah, but they
If
won't
they're
pay.
still-
They won't pay the note on
They
it.
won't pay. Yeah, they won't get it
We'll
licensed.
find out.
They're
Next
going to
week.
use that
We'll
money.
find out.
Yeah. Dude, that Carvana. Speaking of, Carvana is set to wipe out more than half of its market value in just 2 trading sessions as the stock plunged to an all-time low on deepening gloom about used car sales.
Time to buy.
Shares of the auto retailer have sunk more than 53% in the 2 trading days since the company reported disappointing third quarter results late on Thursday, bringing its once lofty market capitalization down to about $1.4 billion from $2.6 billion before the earnings miss. That's a far cry from the $60 billion valuation the firm commanded last year. The shares fell 15.6% to close at $7.39.
I bet you all
last
the
Monday.
executives sold out at the 60 billion level.
I want out.
Yeah, we'll
I'm
see
here,
ya.
I'm here for your stock, Chuck.
Quick break now. You're on the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show. Everyone at the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In at the Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex in Katy, thank you for participating in the best cruise in around and look forward to seeing you again. You'll hear about the next cruise in date right here on In Wheel Time. Next time you're in the West Houston Energy Corridor area, be sure and stop in at the original Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex at I-10 and Highway 6 or the Katy location on the Grand Parkway at Kingsland Boulevard. When passing through Beaumont or College Station, stop in and have Lupi's award-winning beef fajitas and frozen margaritas. There's always a celebration at Lupi Tortilla. Lupi Tortilla founder Stan Holt and his wife Sheila are winning racers on the NHRA drag racing circuit and have a collection of hot rods and classics that everyone appreciates. Look for them at the next Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In. The date will be announced soon and will once again be held at the Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex on 99 and Kingsland Boulevard, just south of I-10 and Katy. We'll give you all the details right here on the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show and online. Donations benefit God's Garage. We'll see you then. You own a car you love. Well, why not let Gulf Coast Auto Shield protect it? Houstonian John Gray invites you to his state-of-the-art facility to introduce you to his specialist team of auto enthusiasts. We promise you'll be impressed. Whether you're looking to massage your original paint to a like-new appearance, apply a ceramic coating, install a paint protection film, nano-ceramic window tint, or new windshield protection called ExoShield, Gulf Coast Auto Shield is where Houston's car people go. Curbed your wheels? Instead of buying new, why not have them repaired? How about a professionally installed radar detector? Gulf Coast Auto Shield does that too. Get a peek inside the shop and look at the services offered by getting online and heading to gcautoshield.com. Better yet, stop by their facility at 11275 South Sam Houston Tollway, just south of the Southwest Freeway, and get a personal tour. Gulf Coast Auto Shield is your place to go for all things exterior. Call them today, 832-930-5655 or gcautoshield.com. The award-winning In Wheel Time Car Talk Show is available on the most popular podcast channels out there in 30-minute episodes. We realize our 3-hour live show can be difficult to catch in its entirety, so now you can listen every day to a convenient, fresh 30-minute episode. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible, along with a dozen more. In Wheel Time has the most informative automotive guest interviews and new car reviews, along with popular features including Conrad's Car Clinic and This Week in Auto History, along with automotive news headlines. Our live broadcast airs every Saturday, 8 to 11 Central on InWheelTime.com, the iHeart app, and on YouTube. Be sure to say hello when we're broadcasting from the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In, Autorama, and the Houston Auto Show, among others. Now, it's easier than ever to hear about all things automotive all week long. You're invited to join fellow car enthusiasts in becoming part of the ever-growing In Wheel Time Car Talk family. Don't forget those 30-minute podcast episodes on your favorite podcast channel. From the Smoke and Mirrors Network, it's the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show. Coming up, we talk with Alan Rudolph with Speed Sports Racing Park and Academy. I got to drive the 2023 Lexus ES350. I'm excited to tell you all about it. We'll also have the cruise-in calendar Conrad has this week in auto history, and I'll bring you the stories making automotive news headlines just ahead on this hour of the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show. Howdy, along with Mike out of this world, Mars, King Conrad DeLong. We always need more Jeff Zekin. I'm Don Armstrong. Thanks so much for joining us on this Saturday. Our last hour of our show. Our show normally airs from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. every Saturday morning in the live version. And then we do podcasts, and Mars takes care of all of the
Cutting and chopping.
rebroadcasting of all the segments and stuff like
Yep.
that. So, thank you, Mr. Morris, for your duty.
It's a duty.
It's a duty. I said duty on the radio. Alan Rudolph is a legend. I'm going to read this because I think it's very well written, and I think that it kind of explains who Alan is, and we all need to know who Alan is. Alan Rudolph is a legend in the karting community, the winner of multiple awards. Alan has stood on the podium in all disciplines of karting, including sprint, road racing, and oval, most notably 5-time SKUSA King of the Streets. He was multiple championships under his belt and is the recipient of the Dan Weldon Ambassador to Karting Award and was recently voted into the inaugural class of the SKUSA Hall of Fame. Alan has trained well-known drivers who went on to be professional careers in driving, including NASCAR driver Chase Elliott. Alan is a fiercely competitive guy, championship-winning race driver, and brings expertise and experience to Houston, Texas through Speed Sports Racing Park and the Alan Rudolph Racing Academy. Alan, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate that.
Well, that's quite an impressive resume that you've got there. Tell me where Speed Sports Racing Park is.
We're actually in New Caney, Texas, just north of Kingwood off of 59 and 242. So just 30 minutes from downtown, 20 minutes from the Woodlands, perfectly located.
And that thing was built, I remember flying over it, a couple years ago, 3 years ago?
Believe it or not, it's approaching 7 years now.
Oh, well, there you go.
Time flies.
Apparently it does. So 7 years now. And do you rent go-karts up there?
Kind of do it all, to be honest. I have, if you've seen the layout of the facility, it's 2 separate racetracks. One is primarily for open to the public rental carts, so arrive and drive, we call it. I do a lot of corporate groups and stuff. So yesterday we had a group of 50 people that did a buyout of the facility and rode our rental carts and had lunch and beer and wine after. And so that's all happens on the rental tracks.
We were kind of hoping that the beer and wine would precede
Before
the racing.
yeah.
No.
No drinking and driving going on here. But that's on the rental side. So day-to-day burn over there is just open to the public Wednesday through Sunday. And then, like on Saturdays, we open at noon. We go to 10 p.m. Sundays, noon to 6. And so you can just come bring family, friends, whatever, and ride our rental carts. And then the other track is what we refer to as our pro track. And that's open to members who have their own go-karts. And as you alluded to in your original email to me, we do car stuff too. So we do drifting now, and the Portrait Club is going to be here today doing autocross. It's a unique way. If you know anything about autocrossing, autocross is generally done in a big empty parking lot with a bunch of cones.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, they treat our track like an autocross, and it honestly works out way better than being on a cone course.
Well, I will tell you that I have done autocross, and for the most part, it's a first gear kind of thing. But I'll tell you what, it certainly does test your driving skills, getting around those cones as fast as you can without spinning out or making horrible mistakes and running over cones and making a fool of yourself is basically it.
Yeah.
So, do you, on those kind of things where you bring your own car? Let's just say the Corvette Club comes out and they want to run. I don't know anything about autocrossing, and do you supply or would you ride with somebody like me that doesn't know anything about it?
I have done that in the past. Do a little coaching. There's a particular car club that comes out once a month called Track Casual. And some of those guys want me to do a little right seat driving with them for some coaching, and I do that. But in general, like this Portrait Club, they run the show. They come and rent the track from me for the day, and they set up their own little timing system and keep track. Autocross is a timed event, so they set all that up. I'm really hands-off on that type of stuff. Same with the drifting.
And you said that the club that you had out recently, you served them lunch and wine and beer and had a great time. Is that pretty typical of what you offer up there?
Yeah, for on the rental track side of things, the open to the public rental carts. Like I said, that's a Wednesday through Sunday event,
Right.
And people come out and race and have a beer, glass of wine afterwards, or whatever. Can make kind of I don't say a day of it, but some people hang out here for 2-3 hours, get some go kart racing in, and have fun doing it. And just recently, 2 weeks ago, a food truck court opened up right across the street. So it's a really unique environment where people can come hang out, go to the food truck. It's called the Food Zone. They can go there and have lunch and come over here and ride go-karts. So
How fun. So what kind of rental carts do you have? Not that I would know the name brand of them, but give me a little background on the rental carts.
Yeah, so they're not your typical. The thing about go-karting is when you say go-karts, both on the rental kart side and on the racing side, if you're not familiar with the stuff, when you say go-karts, people are like, oh, yeah, I have, a yard cart. I got a go-kart in my yard I ride around. It's nothing like that. Or, typical amusement park ride go-kart where you can put your kid next to you and you don't wear a helmet and they go about 20 miles an hour. That's not what these are. These are rental carts that are open to the public, go about 40 or 45 miles an hour.
Wow, that's fast when you got your butt about an inch off the ground.
Yeah, we like to say they're faster than the track, so you actually have to slow down for some of the corners. You cannot go full gas all the way around or you'll fly off the tracks. It's just a much different experience. A lot of people are familiar with indoor karting, but those are all electric. Ours are gas powered. Electric carts are very controlled in how fast they'll let you go. Plus, the track's really small. My rental car track is half of a mile long. Takes the average person about 50 seconds to do a lap. And so it's thrilling. It's unlike anything else you're used to.
What kind of engines are on those?
They have a little Honda, like a Honda GX270 it's called. It's essentially a generator engine, about 9.5 horsepower.
How many horsepower?
9.5.
9.5?
That's quite a bit.
That's a lot. I'm used to the old Briggs & Stratton
That's
2
kinda what I'm
horsepower
thinking. Yeah.
lawnmower motors.
3.5 with the blower.
Yeah.
That's it. And I assume that got a centrifugal clutch on it?
Yeah. Yep. Pretty simple, gas and brake. That's all you have to worry about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what it's all about. So I was involved for a while up at Houston Motorsports Park, and there was a group, I think they're out of Austin, and these are grown men on go-karts going really fast on a 3/8 mile asphalt banked oval, and what an absolute blast. And I'm just watching them go on, and they all know each other. They're all friends. They all help each other. But when they get out of the track, it's a whole different thing.
Absolutely. That's racing in general, right? I mean, the racing community is, we're all a tight-knit family, and everyone knows everybody, and everyone's helpful and friendly. But when you strap on the helmet and jump in the car, it's game on. And so everyone wants to win and do their best.
Well, you had mentioned in your resume here, sprint, road racing, and oval. Now, I don't tell me what the difference is. Well, obviously, sprint is what?
So my kart track right here, the one that's behind me, is a sprint track. So an average sprint track is, call it a small road course, right?
Yeah.
My track is 0.8 of a mile, 15 corners. That's a sprint track. Road racing is when we take and go to Road America, Road Atlanta, Laguna Seca, any of those big tracks, those are called road racing.
Wow, and you take the karts on those big tracks like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And what
fun.
kind of speeds do you get up on those?
Well, it turns out I own the all-out lap record at Road America, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with Road America, but it's a 4-mile road course. And I was in a 250 Twin supercart that made about 100 horsepower, and it went north of 150 miles an hour.
Yeah.
With no roll bar and no sides, and you're just sitting out there all by yourself.
Yeah. No, it's kind of crazy. To be fair, I would never let my kid do it, and I wouldn't do it anymore. I'm a little more mature and wiser now, I suppose, but I can't believe I did. It was always a bucket list of mine to be able to race what's called a supercart, and finally got to do that for a couple of years, and it's so fast. You wouldn't believe how fast they are, but I did that. I'm not doing that again.
Well, I worked with a guy by the name of Lee Beard, who is a drag racing legend, and he was a driver early on, and then he went on to be a crew chief. And one or two of his sons, I think, were really into the competitive go-kart. And I remember him talking about the fact that it was really a step toward open wheel racing. And so many of the open wheel guys actually start in go-karts like you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say every Formula One driver did karting and still does. Most IndyCar guys, believe it or not, even NASCAR guys, the majority of them, you either pick one of two routes. You either pick karting or you pick roundy round, something of starting bandoleros and move on to midgets and sprint cars or whatever. Or in Chase Elliott's case, he started off in karting. They did karting and then moved on to stock cars and the ARCA type things. So he kind of did it all.
What is it about go-karting that is so relative and actually one of those things that all of these people that you hear about, these famous people, go to go-karting? What is it about the go-kart that is so relatable to moving up into actual full-blown race cars?
Well, for me, you can start at a very young age. Believe it or not, karting here at our track starts at 5 years old. The first age group is 5 to 7 or 8 years old, and they just keep on going. So one, you can start at a very young age. To me, it's one of the purest and rawest forms of racing next to, call it sprint cars, There's a reason Kyle Larson constantly races sprint cars and late models and all that other stuff. And so for me, karting has always been like the purest wheel-to-wheel action. By the time these kids turn 16, they've had 8 years or 9 years of racing experience under their belt, and it makes it real easy to make things happen in a go-kart so much faster
to jump to the next level
in a real race car.
Yep.
The closest thing to the fastest go-kart out there is what we refer to as a shifter kart. The closest thing to a shifter kart is really somewhere about IndyCar or Formula One level. And so in terms of how quick things happen, the endurance level that it takes, and so jump out of a go-kart and jump into a car, and a car almost feels slow motion. So these kids that have 8 years of racing under their belt, by the time they jump in a car, it almost seems effortless.
I worked with a gentleman, Jim McMurray, when I was with Keystone. His son was Jamie McMurray.
Yeah, Jamie and I are longtime friends.
Jamie started out in shifter karts, and I think his first NASCAR run was in the Craftsman truck, and then he took over Sterling Marlin's ride, the number 27, and then progressed through his own skills and whatnot. Now he's a commentator. But yeah, I've known Jamie when he was in shifter karts. Imagine that.
Yeah. Now Jamie's from Joplin, Missouri. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and we grew up as kids racing together all the time. His dad's still involved in go-karting.
Jim is a character.
Yeah.
So why would a professional race car driver, let's just use it NASCAR, run a race on an oval track and then go back to karting? Is it just to keep the skills honed?
Yeah, it's skill set and your reaction time and the physical training. And now, to be honest, the NASCAR runs a lot of road courses.
Yes.
And one of the key successes to being successful on the road course is knowing how to do it. I mean, and loving to do it. If you ask Chase Elliott, why he's so successful on the road courses, is because he just loves driving a road course.
Now, are those shifter karts that they use on the road courses?
Either one, shifter, non-shifter, any of that stuff.
Really? And with the shifter karts, now, what kind of a transmission does it have? And how do you shift it?
Well, think of it like a motorcycle. It used to be motorcycle, like a CR125 motorcycle dirt bike engine.
Yep.
And the gear shift lever is hooked to a rod that's up by the steering wheel, and it's just forward and back like you would motorcycle.
I got you.
Or like a
Nowadays,
paddle shifter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that paddle, people have rigged up paddles in the past. The problem is karting is so physically demanding as it is. The moment you start doing this all the time, then you get crazy arm pump. And it's just not as quick of an action by just grabbing the correct rod and boom, 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 boom. It happens so fast.
Is there a clutch on it?
Yeah, I mean, just it's like a motorcycle.
Yep.
Motorcycle engine, right?
Interesting.
So the clutch lever is up by the steering wheel, but the only time you ever use it is to start the race. So the unique thing about shifter carts is the way they start the race is Formula One style. They're all lined up,
Yes.
stacked up, and then the green flag throws, and everyone can dump the clutch. Away you go. You shift without the clutch.
How much fun!
Kind of like
is
a clutch flight. You know, the old clutch flights you'd rig up to where launch with a clutch, and then after that you just shift it like an
Yeah.
automatic.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
All right,
I
we're
love
all
it.
coming out to your place.
Do you give lessons? I mean, you know, if I've got a 5-year-old and I want to get him exposed to karting, do you have an entry level lesson thing going on up there?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's part of the resume you read there. It said mentioned Allen Rudolph Racing Academy. So that's my school. I teach people how to drive, and that's from the 5 or 6 year old that you mentioned that just wants to get into it to somebody that's more advanced and has years of experience. But the day to day, to be honest, I do classes every day. That's called a kart racing experience, and guys like you can come out, bring a couple buddies, and I get you right behind the wheel of one of our 125cc Rotax single speed go-karts, not a shifter.
Right.
And it's a little 2-hour program. It's $249, and we get to ride out on track, do a little safety briefing, and away we go.
So would it have room for Don's oxygen tanks?
My oxygen tank.
Just asking.
Could disguise it as nitrous.
As a little older guy, but no, but like a 5-year-old, is it? Do you have smaller carts or pedal extensions? Okay.
Yeah, for each of the categories, from that 5 to 7, 8-year-old range is called a kid cart, and it's small to fit them. And then from 7/8 up to 12, they're in what's called a cadet cart. It's sort of a medium-sized cart. And then anything 12 and above, you're in what's referred as a full.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Don's a new grandfather, and he's got plans for the grandson.
Clearly
Oh, yeah.
do. Yeah, absolutely.
What was
Yeah.
speaking of which? So let me ask you this: Do you have like a gift certificate program? I mean,
Yeah, you can, on our
about
website, you
Christmas
can buy
presents.
gift certificates on there for both the classes and our arrive and drive. It's just a gift certificate that can be used for this. That's on our website. Great for gift buying ideas for birthdays, Christmas. We sell a lot of gift cards at Christmas time and stuff.
yeah, my son's old enough that he got a full-time job and everything. Grown man buys what he wants, and so I have a hard time getting him things that are kind of
Yeah,
different.
there you go.
And that's what popped into my mind. I said, man,
It's usually bail money.
that'll make
though.
up for all this. Exactly.
That would be a great gift.
No doubt. Alan, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
How do we find out more information about the Speed Sports Racing Park?
Go to the website. It's simple, speedsportsracingpark.com. And that's Speed Sports with a Z. There's a Z on the end. It's part of our logo. So Speed Sports with a Z on the end, racingpark.com.
Yeah,
We'll
I've just posted it on our social media.
We'll be in touch. Thank you. Maybe we'll come out one day and just and have a tear it up out there. Well, maybe
Please
not
do.
tear it up, but
No, don't tear it up. You're not allowed to tear it up.
we'll tear it up. Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Alan, thanks again. Take care of yourself.
That's cool.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Very cool.
I can see that.
I'm thinking Kylie.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. His granddaughter.
Well, there's also the mini dragsters too that
Well, yeah.
was fitted in last year.
Yep. Time now for the cruise-in calendar, and Conrad has that.
I got more than one.
Okay.
More than one calendar?
But just don't make it any more than a minute.
Muffin and Mufflers at Darlin's Diner in Flatonia, Texas, is this afternoon at 11 to 4. Everybody's got a new name. And, of course, Nifty 50s on Buckthorn Place in the Woodlands is tonight from 3 to 10. Shootout Saturday at Houston Motorsports Park is this afternoon. It starts at 4 p.m. Night Lights is 5 to 9 p.m. Off of Gessner Road in Houston. The Cypress West Houston Vintage Car Meetup at the Twisty Treat at Fry Road in Cypress, Texas starts at 6 p.m. tonight. Wheels and Wine at Bordeaux Vino Wine Bar
Oh, there you go.
at Research Forest in the Woodlands starts tonight at 6 p.m. Tomorrow is classic car show. That's hard to read. 707 Del Webb Boulevard in Richmond, Texas. the car church at the Segundo car.
Okay, time now for this week's In Wheel Time car review. I had a chance to drive the 2023 Kia EV6. Now, you guys saw it in the driveway. What'd you think about it?
I thought it was a really sharp-looking car. I was surprised to see that it was a Kia when I first pulled up.
I like the
It's
styling.
it's eye-catching, isn't it?
I actually like the look of it from behind. I think the way they did the tail lights, integrated it into the rear wing.
Yes.
Yeah,
or
good
rear
styling.
spoiler. I thought
Very unique.
Somebody did a nice job of styling that.
So it comes in 3 trim levels, and they are starting from the bottom. The entry level is called the Wind. I have a big Wind. The GT line, that's the middle of the road, and then the GT, top of the line. I had the GT, top of the line. It's considered a small station wagon, I know. But if you look at it, the proportions are really closer to a station wagon than a crossover or SUV. It falls between, really, a hatchback and an SUV. Seats 5, including the driver. It was all new in 2022. Now, this is the 2023 version that I had, with no changes, really. Exterior features a short, quickly sloping hood. Why? There's no motor up there.
Yeah.
It has fake brake ducting on the area below the bumper, kind of like on either side. It's fake. Aero styling with long roof line and a built-in spoiler with a sunshade above that. Sexy, unique rear hatch styling, and has a wraparound taillights like you were mentioning. Lower valance continues from the lower rocker panel up front, right there behind the front wheel opening, to the rear hatch, all integrated into one. So if you stand back and look at it, you go, oh, yeah, I see that. You can see it. What could use improvement? Nothing. I think this is a very unique and cool vehicle. Interior highlights. Stylized buckets up front with neon green piping. I'll tell you about that neon green. Oh, just stand by. Concentric striping theme throughout the cabin, including the dash and the door cards. Extra long instrument cluster. To the left is the digital display for the instruments, and in the middle is the integrated infotainment screen. Very unique, distinct accessories throughout the cabin, the way they work and where they're placed. The cargo and trunk room. It's small, but it's fitting for this EV hot rod, as I like to call it. What I liked about it, all of it. The phone charger located in a perfect place, right in front of the end of the the console.
Wow.
Right there. It's right there.
Right where you want it,
Right where you want it.
where your hand falls.
What I liked about it, everything. Everything.
Yeah, I really like the styling, the profile of it. I mean, I keep thinking about how that looked, and
The only thing that I wish that they would have changed, or if I had more time with it, I've gotten used to it. But the volume knob on the radio also doubles as the temperature control knob.
Duh.
Yeah, very interesting.
So do you want it hot or do you want it loud?
Yeah, hot or loud. That's right. So I thought that knob was, the adjuster was a bit fiddly.
No steering wheel controls?
Yeah,
Okay.
got all that up on the steering wheel. The motor, a dual motor, electric, 77.4 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery. Advertised range is 310 miles. Horsepower, 576. This thing screams.
In that little tiny car.
It uses an 800 volt DC fast charger. Mars, you need to get this thing.
That's what I'm thinking.
Let's see you do your on ramp acceleration test, okay? 0 to 60 is 3.4 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Take that, SS.
Yeah, we need to verify that.
You do. It's already gone. So, manufacturer's miles per gallon rating, 85 in the city, 74 on the highway. It uses 42 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. Okay.
on a 77 kilowatt hour battery.
On a 77.4 kilowatt hour, lithium ion battery. I don't understand all of that. I'm just telling you what I read and the facts of it. You can
Well, I'm
do.
trying to do the math in my head. How do you get to 300 miles when you use 42 per 100?
I don't know. I
77
don't know,
available?
and it was too hard for me to calculate the 30-minute charge that I put in it.
Math is hard on Don.
It very much so. 407 miles is what I put on the odometer
for the week.
Wow.
for the week. What I liked, the Power GT button.
Oh, I heard about that.
That is lime green on the steering wheel. Little bitty button over the side. You go, what is that? Press that. Oh my!
And hold on
God.
tight.
Oh yeah. It's a neon. Call it neon green button. Oh my God! They talk about impressing the neighbors. Get them to ride with you.
The fun
They'll
button.
get out of it real fast.
The
You go,
fun button.
I can't believe that it went that fast. What could use improvement? How do you improve on that? I don't know. I'd like to know. I'd like to see it at a quarter-mile drag strip.
Yeah, 500 horsepower in that size car.
Wow.
With the fun button.
With the fun button. Mm-hmm. Now it's got an eco button on it too, and I tried to drive it most of the time with
That's
that.
the no fun button.
It's a no fun button, but I mean it's very smooth. What I liked, as far as the steering and handling, it felt a little stiff, but they all do. It's what I'm finding with these electric cars.
Well, but
because
it's also heavy.
it's heavy. That's why. It feels like it weighs a lot. What could use improvement? I didn't autocross it to be able to give you an impression. I sure would have liked to, but I got to sign a document that sasays I ain't going to race it or
Well,
nothing.
you got that big old airport parking lot and a big old airport.
Yeah,
runway.
well,
You
that's
get out
not.
there
That
between
ain't going to
the
happen.
planes.
What'll happen is I'll get arrested.
Again.
Base trim price 61.4. Prices tested 62,865. Base model price, $50,000. Competitors, Ford Mustang Mach-E, $48,000. Base price. Tesla Model Y, base price, $55,000. Audi Q4 e-tron, $49,800. So it's kind of in that ballpark, $50,000 to get into
Yeah.
it. That's what those base prices on all those. And that's my review this hour of the 2023 Kia EV6.
You liked it.
The N-Wheel Time Car Talk Show is available 24/7 through the iHeartRadio app. Just look for N-Wheel Time Car Talk. We also video stream on Facebook, YouTube, and nwheeltime.com. Podcasts at your fingertips on over a dozen of the most popular podcast outlets. The N-Wheel Time Car Talk Show continues right after these brief messages. Everyone at the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In at the Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex in Katy, thank you for participating in the best cruise in around and look forward to seeing you again. You'll hear about the next cruise in date right here on N-Wheel Time. Next time you're in the West Houston Energy Corridor area, be sure and stop in at the original Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex at I-10 and Highway 6 or the Katy location on the Grand Parkway at Kingsland Boulevard. When passing through Beaumont or College Station, stop in and have Lupi's award-winning beef fajitas and frozen margaritas. There's always a celebration at Lupi Tortilla. Lupi Tortilla founder Stan Holt and his wife Sheila are winning racers on the NHRA drag racing circuit and have a collection of hot rods and classics that everyone appreciates. Look for them at the next Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In. The date will be announced soon and will once again be held at the Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex on 99 and Kingsland Boulevard, just south of I-10 and Katy. We'll give you all the details right here on the N-Wheel Time Car Talk Show and online. Donations benefit God's Garage. We'll see you then. You own a car you love. Well, why not let Gulf Coast Auto Shield protect it? Houstonian John Gray invites you to his state-of-the-art facility to introduce you to his specialist team of auto enthusiasts. We promise you'll be impressed. Whether you're looking to massage your original paint to a like-new appearance, apply a ceramic coating, install a paint protection film, nano-ceramic window tint, or new windshield protection called ExoShield, Gulf Coast Auto Shield is where Houston's car people go. Curbed your wheels? Instead of buying new, why not have them repaired? How about a professionally installed radar detector? Gulf Coast Auto Shield does that too. Get a peek inside the shop and look at the services offered by getting online and heading to gcautoshield.com. Better yet, stop by their facility at 11275 South Sam Houston Tollway, just south of the Southwest Freeway, and get a personal tour. Gulf Coast Auto Shield is your place to go for all things exterior. Call them today, 832-930-5655 or gcautoshield.com. The award-winning N-Wheel Time Car Talk Show is available on the most popular podcast channels out there in 30-minute episodes. We realize our 3-hour live show can be difficult to catch in its entirety, so now you can listen every day to a convenient, fresh 30-minute episode. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible, along with a dozen more. N-Wheel Time has the most informative automotive guest interviews and new car reviews, along with popular features including Conrad's Car Clinic and This Week in Auto History, along with automotive news headlines. Our live broadcast airs every Saturday, 8 to 11 Central on nwheeltime.com, the iHeart app, and on YouTube. Be sure to say hello when we're broadcasting from the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In, Autorama, and the Houston Auto Show, among others. Now, it's easier than ever to hear about all things automotive all week long. You're invited to join fellow car enthusiasts in becoming part of the ever-growing N-Wheel Time Car Talk family. Don't forget those 30-minute podcast episodes on your favorite podcast channel, gcautoshield.com. Live from Texas, USA, it's the N-Wheel Time Car Talk Show. Coming up, we check with Nate Smith. He's with ATSSA, and you'll have to stay tuned for what all that means. Later, look at the stories making automotive news headlines this week. Howdy, along with Mike out of this world, Mars. King Conrad DeLong. We need more Jeff Zekin. I'm Don Armstrong. Glad that you could join us today on our show live on the internet and all points in between.
40 countries.
40 countries worldwide.
And they all subscribe.
They do.
Do you subscribe?
I do.
Do you canoe? Canoe. All right. Nate Smith, ATSSA. Anybody want to make any guesses? ATSSA.
American Traffic Safety Association.
Oh, you read it.
I remember things.
And he still got it wrong.
And he did. So you're close. American Traffic Safety Services Association.
Oh, they have services too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Nate is joining us right now. Nate, good morning to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Well, thanks. And I'm not going to try to explain American Traffic Safety Services because since you work there, I would imagine that you have a much better idea of how to tell somebody in a couple of sentences what American Traffic Safety Services Association does.
Absolutely. Happy to. So the American Traffic Safety Services Association, very long name, also known as ATSA, our members manufacture, distribute, and install roadway safety infrastructure equipment. So when you're driving in your car down the road, it's nearly everything on top of the road that is protecting you from driving off the road or getting into a crash.
So you're not the orange barrel guy.
No, we are. So that's exactly right. A lot of people think we are like the seatbelts or the distracted driving folks, but we're actually the infrastructure side. So cones and barrels, pavement markings, guardrails, traffic signs and signals, those types of infrastructure equipment is what our members both manufacture and install. So they're contractors and manufacturers.
Do you actually supply, for instance, let's just say, and we're all very familiar with the orange barrels. Do you also supply the instructions of where to place the barrels during a construction zone?
We do training to tell people how to close down a lane and set up a work zone. From your question, it sounds like maybe there's more opportunity for training out there.
Yes, there is.
It's we do train a whole bunch of people, thousands of people every single year. But think about the sheer number of road construction work zones that are out there, and there's a lot more to do, certainly, especially with influx of federal funding on infrastructure projects coming in the next few years.
Now, do you work with the state? Do you work with the cities? Who do you work with? Whoever is head of the construction project?
Contractors?
So yeah, our member companies are working with state DOTs, counties, cities, in some cases tribes, but especially out west, sort of the units of government that are funding the specific project. Some of our members do airport work as well. And the federal government owns relatively few road miles comparatively to states and local units of government. So our members are working directly with those governmental agencies, to deploy those work zones around the country and make sure that they're done in a safe way.
Okay, so step us through how you integrate what you do with these companies, these contractors that are building an extension or a widening project or fixing a huge issue with the concrete. How do you integrate with those companies?
So me specifically, and I think you're going to love this, from hearing part of your show earlier, is, I wear two hats at ATSA. I work with our members to make sure that, the industry is moving in the right direction and we're supplying everything that they need to get the job done and make sure that we're moving towards zero deaths on the roads. But the other hat that I wear is I'm a lobbyist in Washington, D.C.
Oh,
so,
my gosh.
And
you wait a minute, and you admit that.
I know. I mean, I'm the guy wearing a blazer on a Saturday morning. So, I think I've only been heckled off an airplane once for that. So, it's a pretty good track record.
How to make
I'm sorry?
How to make friends and influence politicians.
That's right. So in that role, I work with U.S. Department of Transportation folks, people on Capitol Hill, members of Congress and staff, and really try and ensure that there are federal policies that are sort of the basis of making sure that roads are as safe as they can potentially be. And of course, that there is funding there as well. And so how does that work? If it's a federally funded project, not all projects are, but specifically if it's a federally funded one, Congress authorizes X amount of money for road projects. The states get a chunk. Each state gets a chunk of that money. And then the states have a plan. They have a transportation plan. Each state does about what they want to accomplish with their funds. And then they bid out projects to start ticking off that list that's there in their state plan. And then our members bid on those projects. Sometimes they win them, sometimes they don't. And then they go get the job done. And so it's actually a pretty direct circle from federal investment, in this case, in a federal project, federal investment to boots on the ground, private contractors getting the job done.
And then they do it all over again because every highway in Houston's been under construction for the 20 years I've lived here.
I think they're stealing the road.
It is. We liken it to holding an old house or an old car for that matter. You don't just put money into it right up front and call it a done deal. It's consistent.
Yes, it's an ongoing project. So once the project is let, the contractor, the company's got it, and they know what they've got to now go do. Is that when you come in and do training and say, okay, if you're going to do this kind of work, this is what you need to do as far as setting your cones and barrels out? Or you help them figure that out?
Nearly every state, and I'm actually going to say every state, has some level of required training. So it's not necessarily just at the tail end. These companies have to ensure that their workers are trained consistently. And in some states, they have to be certified as well. And so it's not just, oh, hey, we have this project that we've won. We got to go make sure our workers are trained, although there's a piece of that. Those companies and the agencies have to ensure that their men and women who are actually out on the road are consistently trained and continue to keep that training up to make sure that they're aware of anything new that's coming out. There's actually, interestingly enough, especially in work zones, a lot of new technology, especially related to connected automated vehicles that's out there right now. You as a driver might not even pick up the fact that you're driving through what we call a smart work zone. But there may be, you were talking about those barrels before. There's a technology out there that there's literally computers in some of those barrels that are really relaying information about traffic back up to the agency that's controlling the project or a transportation center to ensure that the flow of traffic is as seamless as possible. Now, again, more work to be done there. But that's how we start understanding how long that queue is. Do we need to divert people around the work zone because the queue is getting too long? Is there a crash in the queue upstream due to the traffic because of the work zone? So these smart technologies in work zones is really what sort of that future, especially as cars begin to talk to infrastructure and continue to do that more and more, that we know that car that might be self-driving at some point, that Tesla,
Cadillac Cruise.
Yeah. Cadillac Cruise, you're absolutely right. That car knows that there's a person up there. That was a big concern of ours when connected automated vehicles started coming on the scene. Was, okay, we get that they can interact with a traffic signal, that's a stationary object, or a stop sign, or a marking on the road. But how do they interact with short-term, striping operations? You're going down a street and there's the pavement marking truck laying down the stripe as you go, but the whole work zone's sort of moving with it. How does the car interact with that when traffic's going 65 miles an hour or higher and that operation's going 3 to 5 miles an hour? And so we have more work to do there, certainly with the automakers. But that smart technology and cones and barrels and communication is the basis of that.
Do you have anything to do with the big electronic signs? I know there's several by my house where I live that they give warnings out either for a lost person or fog ahead or something. Big electronic ones that are in the air. You work with those folks as well, or is that you?
Our members do the portable ones. So not the fixed overhead ones, but the ones that are connected to a work zone that are on a trailer that might say, work zone, 3 miles ahead or something like that.
Well, these are actually mounted in the ground on large poles that they give information.
So those are the ones that are there permanently.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a state. Yes, because if we see we've got some, obviously a 2-lane road, with a bridge, there'll be a sign out there. I've got a couple of them over in my area that takes about a year, but they've got signs out there that it becomes a 1-lane for the bridge crossing, and they've got a traffic light set up to control the traffic instead of a man standing out there with his stop and go deal. But we've also got some of those, the beach roads like that where they do it. But it's moving. Every day it's a little bit further down the road where this guy is saying you got to stop and you got to go because it's 1 lane for the next quarter mile.
Yeah, one of the newer that you're starting to see them more and more are essentially automated traffic signals for work zones where they're on sort of a boom on a trailer and they're a traffic signal. They're lights.
Right.
But the great part, you can use them in a great application of that is if you've got a bridge that has to go down to one lane, and you don't necessarily have great line of sight from one end of the bridge to the other, you can utilize that, especially in a rural area where you don't need a flagger 24 hours a day. And the signals talk to each other so they know when one is green and one is red. And you can control traffic that way. So that's a great example of, that technology really helping out. It also helps out because, our industry, like every other industry out there, is facing a workforce shortage. We can't get folks who want, especially down in Texas, right? Who wants to work road construction July and August. It's hot and it's hard work and you're long hours. You can make really good money, but it's been a challenge getting workers out on the road to do road construction. So if we have technologies that help, push safety forward without having to wait for people to come on board and be workers, that's going to be an added benefit to the driver as well.
What can we look forward to in the near future? New technology that's going to help traffic get through these construction zones, which are typically huge bottlenecks. I know that we've got this massive project on I-10 out at the Brazos River, just to the west of Houston, and the traffic is an absolute nightmare out there. It's been going on for years, and it's probably going to be at least another couple of years before they finish it. So what's going to help us in the near future that we're not familiar with yet?
Part of it is going to be intrusion detection system. So that's not going to fix all of the traffic related to a work zone. But what it will help fix is if you don't have that secondary intrusion into a work zone. When I talk about that, that is a crash related to the work zone. So there's a work zone already there. People are driving. Someone's likely distracted. They drive into the work zone. God forbid they kill somebody. If we can eliminate sort of those second iteration crashes, then cars will be able to much more easily get through. So there are, on the market today, there are intrusion systems, but those are becoming better and better with every passing year. And they range from extraordinarily sophisticated to a little bit smaller. I'll give you an example. Is Virginia Tech Transportation Institute, which is a kind of a competitor to down where you guys are, the Texas Transportation Institute. Virginia Tech has their own, but they've got a great project going on right now that's still in the project phase with Audi. And they have a detection system within the work zone, and especially also in the vests that the workers wear that are smart. They have little diodes in them that can talk to traffic, and it pushes messages to the Audi who is traveling towards the work zone, and it flashes up on the dashboard exactly as to what's going on. So if there's a lane closure, or that there's traffic ahead, or that there's a worker ahead. And so that the driver is actually knowing real-time, accurate information and what's happening ahead of them in that particular work zone. Now, that is only Audi specific at this point, but I think those are the types of things you're going to see in the not-so-distant future when it comes to work zones. If we can get as much information to that driver as early as possible and ensure it's accurate, then that's going to go a long way in making that a more seamless situation.
Interesting.
I say accurate because how many times have we all driven through when we see a sign that says work zone ahead, and either there's no work zone ahead or there hasn't been a worker there in 3 or 4 days. It's pretty clear. So we have to make sure that the information we're telling the driver is accurate. They trust it.
Well, that's understandable too, because like we've had some rains for the past 4 days here, and no construction crews I'm sure there's some out there doing larger work with bigger equipment and things, but so far as lane closures and things, they pretty much go away during the rain. I mean, they don't work in an area that, potential floods and things.
Absolutely. But, you're a person who thinks critically. A lot of people out there don't draw the conclusion from point A to point B.
So are you guys also working with the infrastructure of car-to-car communication, as they're moving towards the smart car and how cars are going to be talking to each other, understanding time and distance between the vehicles and then on the road as well? Is that something that's in your bailiwick of things to do?
And to that point, you said there's computers in some of the barrels. Is there technology to have that barrel talk to the car?
Yeah. So to answer the first question, yes, we're very involved. We represent construction industry companies and that particular industry. But when it comes to the construction trade associations and groups that are out there, we're one of the most forward advanced there. And I would say that just because when the car is talking to the road, it's our stuff that they're talking to. It's talking to or trying to read the marking on the road, or it's talking to the cone or the barrel or the traffic signal or the traffic sign. And so absolutely we are involved in that. And that's been a concern because, the ability to deploy some of these connected communication systems has been around for a long time. And we're only now just being able to more adequately deploy projects out there. And so we are strongly pushing DOTs to get some projects out there to really test where we need to be going so that we can, we're going to get in the weeds a little bit, but that we can ensure that we are using the spectrum, and that's what allows us to utilize and talk from car to car or car to infrastructure. It's regulated by the Federal Communication Commission, FCC, but we've got allocated bands of spectrum that we can use, but we've got to use them, or else we're not going to have them, because the FCC will look at it and say, hey, you've got it, you haven't used it, someone else needs it. So we've got to be able to deploy these projects soon so that we can continue to make the case that we need that dedicated bandwidth to have those safe transportation communications.
Real quick, because we're going to run out of time here, and there's lots to talk about, I think. But there's you mentioned that Audi's got a project going with the vests and stuff. Somebody's got to do some standardization for all these projects, because when these anonymous cars get out there talking to each other, I mean, they got to talk the same language.
I feel like you read my talking points that I use on Capitol Hill all the time because, man, you want to be like
I'm for hire if you need an assistant.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. The bad example I use, the example that we don't want to be, is automated tolling from 25 years ago or 30 years ago. I'm originally from New England, and unlike Texas, you can drive about 2.5 hours and be in 5 different states. And back when automated tolling first started coming out, what we now know as E-ZPass, up in New England, there were several different companies in each state. So each state had a different company that did their own little transponder, and they didn't talk to each other. And so if you wanted to drive from, say, New Jersey to Maine, you had to have like several transponders in your car and flop them out to get through the toll booth. So that's the example we don't want to do. We've got to make sure that everything talks to each other, but we have to figure out that balance between federal, which would give us that uniformity across the country, and states liking to do things a little bit different than their neighboring state. And so there is a balance there, but we've got to have that foundation that's the same, so that when you are driving across the country, your car can talk to every work zone that's out there. Without that, that's a really serious safety impact.
And do you look at as well integration into vehicle function, like the emergency braking systems that they have today? Do you see that integration with the auto manufacturers as well?
Yeah, so when we work with the auto manufacturers, it's more on that infrastructure side, and so that the automated braking is more in the automaker side of the house. But when we are talking to them, we're saying, okay, you're going to do that automated braking, but what's causing that automated braking? Is there a way that we can develop a work zone that doesn't require that hard stop? Or one of the other technologies that's out there is laying aggregate, little time fine pieces of typically bauxite on top of the pavement, and obviously it's epoxied and it's down there and it's permanent, but that raises the level of friction on the road. And so if you do have that hard stop, making sure that the car will actually stop and not slide into the car in front of it. But those types of technologies are out there as well. So it's talking with the automakers to make sure that their car can talk to the road, and what is it that car maker needs from the infrastructure to best deploy that connected vehicle.
Nate, we're running out of time. We thank you so much for joining us today. We could talk to you for the entire rest of the show. Absolutely fascinating subject, and a very pleasant surprise on this Saturday morning. I had no idea that you were involved in all of this stuff, and let's have you on again soon. Would you please stay in touch with us?
Absolutely, would love to.
Thanks again, and best day to you.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Thank you. Nate Smith, Vice President of Engagement at ATSSA.
I'm going to think of Nate every time I go through a construction
zone. That's right. American Traffic Safety Services Association.
Good information.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right. I got a couple of stories that I want to share with you. from Automotive News. Volkswagen will not develop a new generation Golf
What?
with a combustion engine after the current model reaches the end of its life cycle. Now, does that make sense to you?
Pure EV.
I understand, but here is a car that is hugely successful
And popular.
and they still sell them today, and they can't keep them on the lot. I mean, they hit a home run with this car, but no, we're not going to do that
You
anymore.
talk about all in.
Yeah.
They're
You gotta
going all
remember,
in.
General Motors got rid of Oldsmobile, and it was hugely successful. And Pontiac.
I don't
So
understand.
don't think that they make decisions because they're smart.
Sounds a little bitterness coming over here
Yeah,
to my right. A little bit of bitterness.
I'm feeling a little bit of hate
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now, aren't you?
Put that bitterness in your tapioca.
VW brand boss Thomas Schaefer says if the world develops completely differently than expected by 2026 or 27, then we can also launch a completely new vehicle again, but I don't expect that to happen. So far, that's not planned. The Golf has been in production, by the way, since 1974, and its name will be
Wow.
retained for a battery electric vehicle.
They call it the golf cart.
Duh.
Hey, Buzz, send your comments to info@inwheeltime.com.
A former Benton Baker Chevrolet Buick of Cadillac employee
Uh-oh.
was arrested
No.
after prosecutors alleged he embezzled more than $68,000
That's
from
all?
the Northern Michigan dealership. Stephen Michael Garrett, 35, of Cadillac, Michigan, who had been a title clerk at the Benton Baker dealership, awaits a court date
Can you say that 3 times fast?
after being charged last month by the Wexford County prosecutor with embezzlement of $50,000 to $100,000.
sounds-
He
What's
was
the title?
embezzling from Benton Baker.
Yeah,
He's the best Baker embezzler.
with some,
bet.
with some clean copper clappers from Cleveland. A certified criminal analyst examined bank records and found more than $68,000 in unauthorized checks. According to the Michigan State Police, the report was then given to the Wexford County Prosecutor's Office. Here, have your
It's
way
always
with
the
this
title
man.
clerk.
It is, yeah.
Always.
Somebody that takes the checks.
Yep.
Okay.
It's never the porter.
Uh,
That
General
was Tom.
Motors on
Here we go.
General Motors on Tuesday said about 5,000 of its salaried employees have elected to leave the company through voluntary buyouts. Did you have a voluntary buyout?
No, I was involuntarily separated was the phrase they used.
CFO Paul Jacobson, who's not a liked man.
It's chief financial officer. You know, his job's not in jeopardy, right?
Right.
He's the title clerk.
So Paul
Miserable
shared the
failure.
number during a Bank of America automotive conference and said the program came in line with the automaker's expectations as part of an effort to cut $2 billion in costs over the next 2 years. So $2 billion.
They could
Divided-
save 14 million if they got rid of Mary Barra.
$2 billion divided by 5,000. Those people are making a lot of money if that the number
If that's
is
the
true.
buyout, yeah.
The number represents about 6% of the 81,000 salaried employees GM had globally at the end of 2022. GM leaders told employees in a memo Tuesday that no layoffs or terminations are on the table for now.
Yeah.
Hogwash.
Heard that lie before.
Hogwash.
And you know, the funny thing about it is, Conrad, that you actually drive a General Motors vehicle.
Yes, I do. I don't buy one, but I drive one.
Well, you obviously bought it at some point.
Well, it's been a while.
No, we bought that used. That
Yeah.
Yukon I have,
Whatever.
we bought that used.
Whether you new or used doesn't make any difference. You bought one.
The last 5 new cars we bought have been 4 Audis and 2 Mercedes.
And 2 of those have been recalled.
And nobody's allowed to ride in the front seat.
No, that's the Volkswagen, I believe.
Shake on that.
Volkswagen, Audi, what's the difference?
And GMC and Chevy are updating the engines on their full-size pickup trucks for the 2024 model year. GMC on Wednesday said it will make General Motors' second-generation 3-liter inline-6 Duramax turbo diesel engine standard
Wow.
on the 2024 Sierra 1500's AT4X off-road trim starting this summer after
Because they've had such success with the inline 4-cylinder turbo
Let's
in the
put 2
full-size
more on it.
trucks.
let's put 2 more on it. And the same thing with Sierra. Same thing. So I just thought I'd pass that
I had a
along.
Trailblazer with an inline 6. It was a good car.
All right. Time now for a quick break here on the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Everyone at the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In at the Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex in Katy, thank you for participating in the best cruise in around and look forward to seeing you again. You'll hear about the next cruise in date right here on In Wheel Time. Next time you're in the West Houston Energy Corridor area, be sure and stop in at the original Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex at I-10 and Highway 6 or the Katy location on the Grand Parkway at Kingsland Boulevard. When passing through Beaumont or College Station, stop in and have Lupi's award-winning beef fajitas and frozen margaritas. There's always a celebration at Lupi Tortilla. Lupi Tortilla founder Stan Holt and his wife Sheila are winning racers on the NHRA drag racing circuit and have a collection of hot rods and classics that everyone appreciates. Look for them at the next Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In. The date will be announced soon and will once again be held at the Lupi Tortilla Tex-Mex on 99 and Kingsland Boulevard, just south of I-10 and Katy. We'll give you all the details right here on the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show and online. Donations benefit God's Garage. We'll see you then. You own a car you love. Well, why not let Gulf Coast Auto Shield protect it? Houstonian John Gray invites you to his state-of-the-art facility to introduce you to his specialist team of auto enthusiasts. We promise you'll be impressed. Whether you're looking to massage your original paint to a like-new appearance, apply a ceramic coating, install a paint protection film, nano-ceramic window tint, or new windshield protection called ExoShield, Gulf Coast Auto Shield is where Houston's car people go. Curbed your wheels? Instead of buying new, why not have them repaired? How about a professionally installed radar detector? Gulf Coast Auto Shield does that too. Get a peek inside the shop and look at the services offered by getting online and heading to gcautoshield.com. Better yet, stop by their facility at 11275 South Sam Houston Tollway, just south of the Southwest Freeway, and get a personal tour. Gulf Coast Auto Shield is your place to go for all things exterior. Call them today, 832-930-5655 or gcautoshield.com. The award-winning In Wheel Time Car Talk Show is available on the most popular podcast channels out there in 30-minute episodes. We realize our 3-hour live show can be difficult to catch in its entirety, so now you can listen every day to a convenient, fresh 30-minute episode. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible, along with a dozen more. In Wheel Time has the most informative automotive guest interviews and new car reviews, along with popular features including Conrad's Car Clinic and This Week in Auto History, along with automotive news headlines. Our live broadcast airs every Saturday, 8 to 11 Central on InWheelTime.com, the iHeart app, and on YouTube. Be sure to say hello when we're broadcasting from the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In, Autorama, and the Houston Auto Show, among others. Now, it's easier than ever to hear about all things automotive all week long. You're invited to join fellow car enthusiasts in becoming part of the ever-growing In Wheel Time Car Talk family. Don't forget those 30-minute podcast episodes on your favorite podcast channel.